The phoenix pendant swayed as the little girl laughed, and Kim Wong's world stopped. His tattooed hand, the same hand that had ended lives without hesitation, trembled as he stared at the silver necklace around her neck. 6 years. 6 years since his mother's necklace vanished in a drunken haze at a Manhattan hotel. And now here it was, on a child who had his exact eyes, his mother's smile. In the shadows of New York's criminal underworld, where emotion was suicide, this $40 piece of silver was about to destroy everything Kim had built to stay alive. Kim Wong didn't get rattled. The 42-year-old boss controlled every block from Koreatown to the Bowery through ice-cold calculation. Assassination attempts, federal raids, hostile takeovers. He'd survived them all by feeling nothing. The 3-piece Tom Ford suit, the Mercedes parked outside, the penthouse view of Manhattan, all of it bought with blood and strategic brutality. Even the tattoos covering his neck told the story. A man who'd clawed his way from immigrant poverty to criminal royalty by burying every weakness. But that necklace. 6-year-old Rosalia played with her coloring book on Vincent Park's living room floor, barely noticed by the men discussing territory expansion. The phoenix pendant caught the afternoon light, intricate Korean metalwork Kim's mother had worn until the day she died. He'd gotten drunk enough to forget a woman's name 6 years ago, but never drunk enough to willingly abandon that necklace. Vincent kept talking. The other men reviewed maps. And Kim couldn't breathe. Because the child wearing his mother's last gift had his bone structure, his widow's peak, his hands. This wasn't about a lost possession anymore. This was about a life that shouldn't exist. A vulnerability that could get him killed. A daughter he never knew he had. And walking out of the bedroom, dust rag in hand, was the woman who'd change everything. Vincent Park spread the territory maps across his glass coffee table, stabbing his finger at the disputed blocks. The Bratva want Delancey Street. They're moving product through our distribution points, and we need to send a message before this becomes a pattern. We send bodies, Kim said quietly. His voice carried the kind of calm that made grown men nervous. Not loud, not aggressive, just matter of fact. Like discussing the weather instead of murder. 3 of theirs, visible placement, the kind of message that doesn't need translation. Vincent nodded, making notes on his tablet. This was why Kim Wong ran the Lower East Side and had been expanding steadily for 15 years. While other bosses yelled and postured, trying to prove their masculinity through volume, Kim calculated. Every decision filtered through one simple question: what keeps me breathing tomorrow? Emotion was a luxury he'd buried the day his mother died, leaving 12-year-old Kim alone in America, with nothing but her phoenix necklace and a talent for survival that bordered on pathological. 2 other men sat around the coffee table. Jun-ho, Kim's enforcer, built like a subway car with hands that could crush windpipes, and a face that had taken enough punches to look permanently angry, and David Lee, the accountant who made their cash legitimate through a network of dry cleaners, nail salons, and Korean restaurants that served decent food while laundering excellent money. They'd been meeting every Thursday for 6 years, reviewing territories, settling disputes, planning expansion, routine, controlled, safe, until the little girl wandered in from the hallway. She couldn't have been more than 6. Wearing a pink dress that looked thrift store cheap, but had been washed and pressed with care. Her hair was pulled into 2 puffs decorated with plastic barrettes, and she clutched crayons in her small fist like weapons. She glanced at the men briefly, dark eyes assessing them with the wariness children learned in unstable households, then settled on the floor near the window. Pulling out a coloring book decorated with cartoon characters Kim didn't recognize, she began working on a picture of what looked like a castle. Vincent's expression tightened, annoyance flickering across his face. Samantha's daughter, the new maid. I told her to keep the kid in the back bedroom during meetings, but apparently that instruction wasn't clear enough. It's fine, Kim said, though his attention had already shifted. Children made him uncomfortable in ways he couldn't fully articulate. They reminded him of vulnerability, of the terrified boy he'd been before he learned to bury feelings like corpses in unmarked graves. But something about this particular child pulled at him. The shape of her face, maybe, all angles and determination. The way she moved with careful quietness, like she'd learned early not to take up space, not to be noticed, not to give adults reasons to raise their voices. Then she looked up to grab a different crayon, and Kim's heart stopped functioning. Her eyes, deep set and dark brown, with that distinctive epicanthic fold at the inner corner. Korean eyes. His eyes. The same eyes that stared back at him from mirrors, from photographs of his mother, from the grandmother he'd never met but had seen in old pictures yellowed with age. But this child's skin was rich brown, her features a blend that shouldn't exist in Vincent's penthouse, in Kim's world, attached to a child he'd never seen before, this exact moment. Junho was talking about the warehouse shipment from Queens. David was reviewing quarterly numbers, pointing at his tablet. Vincent gestured at the territorial maps, explaining why the Bratva's incursion was more serious than typical boundary disputes. And Kim couldn't hear any of it because the little girl had leaned forward to grab a red crayon, and something silver swung from her neck on a delicate chain. The phoenix pendant. His mother's pendant. The one she'd pressed into his palm the night she died in a charity hospital bed, whispering in Korean that it would protect him the way she no longer could. The one he'd worn every single day for 23 years, through street fights and assassination attempts, and one disastrous federal investigation, until that hotel party 6 years ago, when he'd gotten so drunk he could barely remember his own name, let alone the woman in his bed, or where he'd left the necklace the next morning. Kim's hand, halfway to the coffee table to point at something on the map, began to shake. Junho noticed first. Hyung? The Korean honorific felt distant, like it was coming through water. You okay? You look... I'm fine. Kim forced his hand flat against his thigh, pressing until his knuckles went white. Counted to 3, the breathing technique he'd learned after the first assassination attempt, when panic attacks threatened to make him look weak. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Emotions locked in a box where they couldn't get you killed. But his mother's necklace was on this child's neck. His mother's necklace that he'd lost in a drunken stupor 6 years ago. And this child looked 6 years old, and she had his eyes. And the math was brutal and unavoidable and absolutely fucking impossible. Where did that child get that necklace? His voice came out rough, like he'd swallowed gravel and chased it with battery acid. Vincent blinked, following Kim's gaze. What? The necklace. Around her neck. Where did she get it? The other men followed his stare. The little girl glanced up, her hand moving instinctively to the pendant, fingers closing around it. Protective. Like it mattered to her. Like it meant something beyond simple decoration. I've never noticed it, Vincent admitted, squinting. Samantha's been here a week. The kid comes sometimes after daycare when Samantha can't find a sitter. I don't pay attention to children's jewelry, Hyung. Why would I? Kim stood abruptly, his chair scraping against Vincent's expensive hardwood floor with a sound like fingernails on a chalkboard. The little girl flinched at the noise, but didn't run. She watched him with those eyes, his mother's eyes, and something about her stillness spoke of a child used to men's anger, men's unpredictability. Men who moved suddenly and made women cry. The thought made his chest tight in ways he hadn't experienced since his mother's funeral. He crossed the room slowly, deliberately, crouching 3 feet away from her so he wouldn't tower over her small frame. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. Devastating. The widow's peak at her hairline, exactly like his. The shape of her hands, long fingers that would probably be good for piano or surgery or picking locks. The way she held her mouth when she was thinking, bottom lip caught between her teeth. These weren't coincidences. These were genetics written across her face in permanent ink. What's your name? he asked quietly, keeping his voice gentle despite the chaos tearing through his chest like shrapnel. Rosalia. Her voice was small but clear, brave despite her size, despite the scary tattooed man crouching near her space. That's a pretty name. Pretty necklace too. Can I see it? She hesitated, dark eyes assessing him for threat level. Then she lifted the pendant so it caught the afternoon light streaming through Vincent's floor-to-ceiling windows. The metalwork was unmistakable, a phoenix rising from stylized flames, wings spread in eternal ascent, Korean characters etched along the bottom edge. His mother had commissioned it from a jeweler in Seoul before immigrating to America, before she'd married Kim's father, before everything went wrong. One of a kind. Irreplaceable. Impossible to mistake for anything else. "Where did you get it?" he asked, keeping his tone light, non-threatening. Like he was asking about her favorite color instead of the object that was currently destroying his entire sense of reality. "Mommy gave it to me. She said it was from when I was a baby. From my daddy, she thinks. But she doesn't know for sure." Rosalia's words tumbled out with the honesty children had before life taught them to lie. She doesn't remember much about him, just that he gave her the necklace and said to keep it safe. "Your mommy, is she here now?" Rosalia nodded toward the hallway leading to Vincent's master suite. "She's cleaning Mr. Park's bedroom. She does that a lot. Cleaning people's houses." Kim stood, his movements mechanical, operating on autopilot while his brain tried to process information that refused to make sense. Vincent was watching him with increasing concern, professional mask slipping to show genuine worry. Junho had his hand near his jacket, where Kim knew he kept a knife sheathed against his ribs. David looked confused and uncomfortable, clearly wanting to check his phone but not daring to break the tension. "Vincent," Kim said quietly, using the tone that meant this wasn't a request. "Get the maid. Now." "Hyung, what's going on?" "Get the maid." Not loud, not aggressive, just absolute. "Please." Vincent's jaw tightened, but he stood and walked toward the hallway, footsteps echoing on the hardwood. Kim returned to his position near the window, needing the physical distance from Rosalia while his mind raced through possibilities and implications. He couldn't take his eyes off her. She'd gone back to coloring, seemingly unbothered by the adult tension crackling through the room like electricity before a storm. Her crayon moved in careful strokes, staying inside the lines, creating something orderly from blank space. 6 years old. His mother's necklace, his eyes, his features, his genes written across her face. The math was brutal and undeniable. Footsteps in the hallway. A woman's voice murmuring apology in English tinged with Southern accent. And then she walked into the living room, and Kim's world tilted for the second time in 5 minutes. 28, maybe pushing 30. Black, with natural hair pulled into a practical bun and skin that glowed despite the obvious exhaustion around her eyes. She wore the generic uniform of domestic workers, polo shirt with Vincent's cleaning service logo, khaki pants, sensible shoes designed for standing all day. But she carried herself with a dignity that made the outfit irrelevant, spine straight, shoulders back, meeting eyes directly despite the obvious power imbalance in the room. And Kim recognized her. Not clearly, not with certainty, but with the fuzzy edges of tequila-soaked memory that refused to come into focus no matter how hard he concentrated. A hotel bar with lighting too dim and music too loud. A fundraiser for some politician whose name he'd forgotten within an hour because he didn't actually care about politics. Drinks too strong, inhibitions too weak. A woman with a smile that made him forget his rules about staying sober during business functions. "Samantha," Vincent said carefully, voice tight with the tension of not understanding what was happening, but knowing it was significant. "This is Kim Wong. He's my business partner. He has some questions about Rosalia's necklace." Her eyes widened. Just for a second, pupils dilating with what looked like recognition mixed with fear, and underneath it all, something that looked like resignation. Like she'd been waiting for this moment for 6 years, dreading it, but knowing it would eventually arrive. "The necklace," Kim said, his voice steady despite everything falling apart inside him. "Where did your daughter get it?" Samantha's throat worked, Adam's apple bobbing as she swallowed hard. It was a gift. From her father. And where is her father now? "I don't know." The words came out quiet but firm, practiced like she'd said them 1,000 times to social workers and daycare administrators and random people who asked too many questions. "It was one night, 6 years ago. I never saw him again after that morning." The room had gone silent. Junho's hand was definitely on his knife now, ready for violence that might be necessary. David was staring at his laptop like he could disappear into the spreadsheets if he tried hard enough. Vincent looked between Kim and Samantha with dawning comprehension creeping across his face. Kim stepped forward. Samantha's spine straightened further, shoulders rolling back in preparation for confrontation, but she didn't retreat. Brave or foolish, he couldn't tell yet. Maybe both. Maybe brave because she had to be, raising a child alone in a city that ate people like her alive. "What hotel?" he asked. Her breath caught. "What? What hotel was the party at? 6 years ago. October 14th. Political fundraiser. What hotel?" Recognition bloomed in her eyes, followed by horror. "The Plaza. It was at the Plaza. Some politician. I was working coat check to make extra money, but afterwards some of us stayed for the open bar and I—" She stopped, her gaze dropping to the floor. "Why are you asking me this? How do you know the date?" Kim reached up slowly, pulling his collar aside to reveal the tattoo on his neck. A phoenix, wings spread, rising from stylized flames. The same exact design as the pendant around Rosalia's neck. The same design his mother had shown him in that Seoul jeweler's shop when he was 7 years old, promising him the necklace would be his when he was old enough to protect it. Samantha's face drained of color. Her hand went to her mouth. "Oh God. Oh my God. I need to speak with you," Kim said quietly, forcing the words past the chaos in his throat. "Alone. Please." The word felt foreign in his mouth. Unfamiliar. Kim Wong didn't say please, didn't ask permission, didn't show vulnerability in front of associates and subordinates. But his mother's necklace was around this child's neck, and that changed absolutely fucking everything. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. Before we continue with what happened next in that private conversation, hit that subscribe button. This story is about to take a turn nobody saw coming. We're about to find out the truth about Rosalia, and what happens when a dangerous man discovers he's been a father for 6 years without knowing it. Don't miss what comes next. Samantha's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She followed Kim Wong through Vincent Park's penthouse, past the living room where Rosalia still colored, oblivious to the bomb that had just detonated in her mother's chest. Past the expensive furniture and abstract art that cost more than Samantha made in a year. Past windows overlooking Manhattan like the whole world belonged to people who could afford this view. They ended up in Vincent's study. Leather chairs worn smooth with age, mahogany desk heavy enough to stop bullets, floor-to-ceiling windows that made her feel exposed. The kind of room that reminded Samantha exactly how far she was from belonging in this world. Kim closed the door. Didn't sit. Just stood near the window with his back to her, shoulders rigid beneath his expensive suit. Samantha counted the seconds, trying to organize her thoughts into something coherent. 6 years. She'd had 6 years to prepare for this moment, and now that it was here, every practiced explanation dissolved into panic. "The Plaza," Kim said finally, voice flat. "October 14th, 6 years ago. You remember the date. Barely anything else, but I remember that." He turned to face her, and away from his associate's scrutiny, his expression was less controlled. Something raw moved beneath the surface like watching tectonic plates shift under skin. I remember a woman at the bar. Black dress that made every man in the room stare. Smile that made me forget why I don't drink at work functions. Everything after the third drink is pieces, fragments. Samantha forced herself to meet his eyes, even though looking at him hurt in ways she couldn't fully articulate. I remember more than you do. Not much more, but enough. We talked about... God, I don't even remember what we talked about. Something that made me laugh, which was rare back then. You were different than the other men there. Quieter, less desperate to impress. You listened when I talked instead of just waiting for your turn to speak. And in the morning, you were gone. The memory still stung, even after 6 years. She'd woken up in a hotel room that cost more than her monthly rent, tangled in sheets that felt like silk, alone except for a necklace on the nightstand and a note written in slightly shaky handwriting for whatever comes next. I thought maybe you'd be in the bathroom or getting coffee, but no, just the necklace and the note. At the time, she'd thought it was romantic in a reckless sort of way, a beautiful stranger, a perfect night, a mysterious gift. She'd worn the necklace every day of her pregnancy, telling herself stories about the man who'd left it. Stories that evaporated when reality hit. Single motherhood, mounting bills, a daughter who needed more than romantic fantasies and fairy tales. I didn't know you were pregnant, Kim said quietly. I didn't know I was pregnant until 6 weeks later. Morning sickness that wouldn't stop. Exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix. A missed period that turned into 2. By then, I had no way to find you. No name, no number, just a necklace and a vague memory of Korean tattoos. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the warm room. I tried to trace you for about 3 months, used the necklace as a starting point, asked around about Korean men at the fundraiser, but nobody knew anything. Or nobody wanted to tell a black woman looking for a one-night stand who'd gotten her pregnant. Kim's expression flickered. Guilt? Regret? Something else Samantha couldn't read well enough to be sure. That necklace belonged to my mother, he said quietly. She gave it to me the night before she died. It's the only thing I had left of her, the only connection to who I was before this life. Korean metalwork. One of a kind. Commissioned from a jeweler in Seoul. I wore it for 23 years and never took it off. Until that night. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate, too small for the weight they carried. I didn't know. Rosalia's worn it since she was a baby. It's the only thing I could give her of her father's, the only proof he existed at all. Don't apologize. Kim moved to the desk, braced his hands against it like he needed the support. If anyone should apologize, it's me. Getting drunk enough to black out. Leaving without a word. Not even asking your name before. He stopped, jaw tightening. You said her name is Rosalia? Rosalia Dudley. She just turned 6 in August. August 3rd. 6. He said it like he was testing the weight of the number, like trying to understand 6 years of life he'd missed. And she's been... what? Healthy? Happy? Has she had a good life? The question caught Samantha off guard. Of all the things a dangerous man might ask about a surprised daughter, she hadn't expected happy. Hadn't expected him to care about quality of life over just biological fact. Yeah, she's good. Smart as hell. Funny when she trusts you. Quiet around strangers, but a firecracker once she feels safe. Loves drawing, hates vegetables, asks approximately 10,000 questions a day. She's perfect. Something crossed Kim's face that might have been longing, might have been grief. Does she know about me? About her father? She knows I don't know where you are, that I've never known. She's asked questions over the years, and I've told her the truth, that her father and I had one night together, and I never saw him again. That I don't think it was his fault. That sometimes life just happens that way. She's never asked for more than that. Never seemed to need more. Kids are resilient like that. Until they're not. Kim looked at her directly for the first time since they'd entered the study. His eyes held the same careful blankness Rosalia sometimes wore when other kids asked about her dad. A shield, a survival mechanism. Armor built from necessity. I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to answer honestly. What do you want from this? From me? I don't want anything. I didn't come here looking for you. I didn't even know you existed in this context until 5 minutes ago. But now you do. Now you know He gestured vaguely at himself, at the expensive suit and visible tattoos, and controlled violence humming beneath his surface. Whatever I am. Businessman with flexible ethics. Criminal. Dangerous man. Pick your terminology. What exactly is your line of work? She needed to know, needed to understand what she was potentially bringing into Rosalia's life. Nothing legal. Everything profitable. I control territory from Koreatown to the Lower East Side. Protection, distribution, gambling, some legitimate businesses that wash the illegal money. I've killed people who threatened my operations. I'll probably kill more before I'm done. He said it matter-of-factly, like discussing quarterly earnings instead of murder. That's who your daughter's father is. That's what you're dealing with. Samantha had suspected as much. The way Vincent's other guests had treated Kim, the deference mixed with fear, the tattoos and expensive suit and controlled violence. She'd worked enough wealthy households to recognize dangerous men. So what now? Do we just pretend this never happened? You go back to your criminal empire. I go back to cleaning houses. Rosalia never knows? Can we? The question held no sarcasm, just genuine curiosity. You've seen me now. You know what that necklace means. Your daughter has my eyes, my face, my genetic code written across her like a signature. Even if I walked away right now, even if I paid you to disappear, do you think this stays secret? Fear clutched Samantha's throat. Are we in danger? From you or from... Not from me. Never from me. Kim's voice carried absolute certainty, the kind that made you believe him despite every rational thought. But the people I work with, the people who work against me, if they find out I have a daughter, they'll use her. To control me or to hurt me. Either way, she becomes leverage, a target. A weakness in armor I've spent 15 years building. Then what are you suggesting? A DNA test, first and foremost. We need to be certain beyond doubt. I'm certain. I need to be certain. He softened slightly. I'm not questioning you. I'm protecting us both. If the test confirms what we both suspect, then we figure out next steps. How to keep you and Rosalia safe. How to be in her life. If that's something you'd allow. If that's something that wouldn't put her in more danger than it's worth. Samantha studied him. He stood like a man preparing for battle, shoulders back, hands loose at his sides, ready to fight or flee. But his eyes betrayed him. They kept drifting toward the door, toward the living room where Rosalia was still coloring, completely unaware that her entire world had just shifted on its axis. If you hurt her, Samantha said quietly, I don't care how dangerous you are. I don't care how many people you've killed. I'll find a way to make you pay. I'll dedicate my life to it if I have to. Kim's lips twitched. Almost a smile. Almost respect. I believe you. And I deserve it. So we do a test. Then what? Then we see if science confirms what my gut already knows. He pushed off from the desk, straightened his jacket with practiced precision. I have a doctor on retainer. Discreet, fast, accurate. No questions asked, no records that could surface later. We can do the test today if you're willing. Results in 48 hours, maybe less if I push. And if the test says yes? If Rosalia is yours beyond doubt? Kim was quiet for a long moment, staring at the Manhattan skyline like it held answers. Then I have a daughter, and I figure out how to be a father without getting her killed. Because the world I live in doesn't forgive weakness, and children are the ultimate weakness. The honesty in his voice surprised her. Samantha had expected denial, maybe anger, possibly an offer of money to disappear and never contact him again. She hadn't expected this raw acknowledgement of inadequacy, this visible fear of failure. "You've never wanted children? Never thought I'd live long enough for it to matter." He met her eyes again, and this time she saw past the armor to the scared 12-year-old who'd lost his mother. "My mother died when I was 12. Left me alone in New York with no family, no money, no English worth speaking. Everything I built by being harder and colder than everyone trying to kill me. That doesn't exactly prepare you for fatherhood." Rosalia doesn't need hard or cold. She needs present and honest. She needs someone who shows up consistently, not someone who's there when it's convenient and gone when it's difficult. "Then maybe you need to figure that out before we go any further." Samantha straightened, finding her spine again, finding the strength that had carried her through 6 years of single motherhood. "Because I won't let you be a half-present father. I've seen what that does to children. If you're in, you're all in. If you're out, you're gone completely." Rosalia deserves better than a man who shows up when it's convenient and disappears when it gets hard. Kim studied her with something that might have been respect. "You're braver than you look. I'm a single black mother raising a biracial daughter in New York while working 3 jobs to keep us housed and fed. Brave isn't a choice, it's a requirement. It's what you do when the alternative is giving up." Before Kim could respond, Vincent's voice called from the hallway. "Hyung, you've got a call. Says it's urgent." Kim's expression shuddered immediately, vulnerability disappearing behind practiced blankness like a stage curtain dropping. "Give me 2 minutes." He turned to Samantha, pulling a business card from his inner pocket. Plain white cardstock, just a phone number embossed in black ink. No name, no company, no identifying information. "Call this number tomorrow morning at 9. My doctor will answer. She'll set up the test, handle everything discreetly. And after? After, we deal with whatever comes next." He paused at the door, hand on the knob, looking back at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Can I say goodbye to her? To Rosalia? Before I leave?" Samantha nodded, following him back to the living room. Rosalia had finished her picture, a house with a family of 3 stick figures standing in front, holding hands. Father, mother, daughter. Samantha's throat tightened. Kim crouched beside her, maintaining that same careful distance he'd kept earlier. "That's a really good drawing." Rosalia beamed, pride lighting up her face. "Thank you. It's my family. Well, my family and my daddy, even though I don't know what he looks like. So I just drew a tall person." "You're very talented." He hesitated, then added softly, "Can I see your necklace one more time?" She held it out proudly, the phoenix catching the light. "Mommy says it's special, that my daddy wanted me to have it to keep me safe." "It is special. It's very, very special." Kim's hand moved like he might touch it, then stopped. "Take good care of it, okay? Never take it off." "I won't. I promise." He stood, nodded once to Samantha, an acknowledgement, a promise, a beginning, then walked out without another word. Vincent followed, questions written all over his face. Junho and David gathered their materials, and within 5 minutes, the penthouse was empty, except for Samantha, Rosalia, and the weight of everything that had just changed. "Mommy?" Rosalia tugged her sleeve. "Was that man nice?" Samantha knelt down, pulling her daughter close, breathing in the smell of her hair and crayons and innocence. "I don't know yet, baby, but we're about to find out. If you've ever wondered how one moment can change everything, you're watching it happen right now. This story is about to take a turn nobody saw coming." Hit that subscribe button because what happens when Kim discovers the truth about Rosalia will shake everything. The DNA test is coming, and the results will change 3 lives forever. Don't miss what happens next. Dr. Raymond Smith worked out of a private clinic in Midtown, the kind of place where discretion was more valuable than insurance coverage. Kim had used her services before. Gunshot wounds treated off the books, medical records that never saw official systems, talk screens that disappeared before police could subpoena them. Smith asked no questions and remembered nothing. Perfect for a man whose life depended on secrets staying buried. Samantha clutched Rosalia's hand as they entered the sterile waiting room the next morning. The receptionist, an older Korean woman with Kim's eyes, a relative, maybe, or just someone who understood the value of silence, nodded them through immediately. No paperwork, no ID required, no insurance cards or co-pays. Just 2 cheek swabs and a promise of answers within 48 hours. This will feel like a toothbrush, Dr. Smith explained to Rosalia, her voice gentle despite her clinical precision. She was younger than Samantha expected, maybe early 40s, with steady hands and kind eyes. Just rub the inside of your cheek for a few seconds. Can you do that for me? Rosalia nodded solemnly. She'd been quiet since they left the apartment, processing in that way 6-year-olds do, absorbing everything, understanding nothing, but sensing that something important was happening. The swab came back clean, cells collected. Smith sealed it in a tube marked only with a number, no names attached. Kim arrived as they were finishing, slipping through a side entrance that avoided the main waiting room entirely. He'd changed into jeans and a leather jacket, looking less corporate boss and more street enforcer. The tattoos on his neck were fully visible now. The phoenix, yes, but also Korean characters Samantha couldn't read, and other designs that spoke of violence and survival. Done? He asked, his eyes finding Rosalia immediately. Smith nodded. Results by Friday morning. Earlier if I push the lab. Push them. Kim's voice left no room for negotiation. And Dr. Smith? This doesn't exist. No records, no paper trail, nothing that could surface later. Understood. She'd clearly heard this before. Send them to you first, then Ms. Dudley? Yes. Nobody else sees the results. Not even your office staff. They left through different exits. Kim through the side door, Samantha and Rosalia through the front. On the street, Samantha felt exposed. Like every person passing by could see the chaos unraveling inside her. She'd spent 6 years building a life for her and Rosalia. Paycheck to paycheck, sure, barely surviving most months, but stable, safe, predictable. Now, a dangerous man with a criminal empire and her daughter's eyes was about to disrupt everything. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Can we talk tonight? After Rosalia's asleep. Kay, she texted back. My apartment. 9 p.m., address attached. The response came immediately. I'll be there. The day crawled by. Samantha went to work at the nonprofit, trying to focus on grant applications while her mind spun through possibilities. What if the test came back positive? What if Kim wanted custody? What if his enemies found out? What if Rosalia got hurt because of biology she didn't choose? Gerald called 3 times. She ignored him. Whatever they'd had was over, and his increasingly angry voicemails only confirmed she'd made the right choice. But his final message made her pause. I know something's going on. I know that guy at Vincent's is back in the picture. You think you can just replace me? We'll see about that. The threat was vague, but present. Samantha deleted the voicemail but couldn't delete the unease settling in her stomach. Kim arrived at her apartment exactly at 9, precise as a clock. No knock, just a text. I'm outside. Samantha buzzed him up. When she opened the door, he stood in the hallway looking simultaneously out of place and perfectly at ease. The leather jacket made him look younger, more approachable, but his eyes were still guarded, still scanning for threats, still operating on the assumption that danger could come from anywhere. She asleep? He asked. Yeah. Come in. He entered like he was expecting an ambush, checking corners, noting exits, cataloging escape routes. Professional paranoia. Samantha closed the door and gestured to the couch, threadbare but clean, salvaged from a curb 3 years ago. Want anything? Water? Coffee? Tea? I'm fine. He sat on the edge of the cushion, clearly uncomfortable in the small space. Your boyfriend left in a hurry earlier. Saw him storming out of the building around 7. Ex-boyfriend as of yesterday. Kim's eyebrow raised. Because of me? Because of a lot of things. You just accelerated the timeline. Samantha sat across from him in the armchair, her reading chair, where she'd nursed Rosalia as an infant and read bedtime stories and processed too many hard days alone. He asked about the necklace, got aggressive when I wouldn't explain. Kim's expression hardened immediately. Did he hurt you? No. I kicked him out before it got that far. But he's been calling, texting, making vague threats about not being replaced. She showed him her phone, 17 missed calls, 32 texts. The most recent one read, You can't keep me away from Rosalia. I have rights. Does he? Kim asked quietly, voice dangerous. Have rights? Not legal ones. He never adopted her, never married me, never did anything that would give him custody. But he's been around for 2 years. She knows him as... Samantha stopped. The word father dying on her lips. As what I should have been. Kim's voice was flat, emotionless. The man who was present while I was absent and oblivious. That's not what I meant. It's what's true. He took her phone, scrolled through Gerald's messages with increasing tension in his jaw. He's escalating. The tone's changing from pleading to threatening. See how the messages get shorter? More aggressive? That's a man losing control. He wouldn't hurt her. Gerald's not violent. You sure about that? Because these texts suggest a man who feels entitled to something he's losing, and entitled men do stupid, dangerous things when they don't get what they want. Kim set the phone down carefully. I'm having him followed. If he comes near you or Rosalia, my people will intercept. Jesus, Kim. This is who I am. He interrupted. Voice sharp. This is what I do. I identify threats and neutralize them before they become problems. Gerald Cooper is a threat to my daughter's safety. That makes him my problem to solve. He's just a man going through a breakup. He's a man who thinks he has ownership over my child. That makes him dangerous. Kim stood, pacing to the window, checking the street below with practiced efficiency. I ran a background check. Gerald Cooper, 32, unemployed for 3 months, gambling debts adding up to about $60,000, connections to low-level dealers in Brooklyn. He's desperate, Samantha, and desperate men do stupid things. Samantha's stomach twisted. How long have you known this? Since Wednesday. Ran the check the day we met. He turned back to her. I wanted you to make your own decision about him without my interference, but now that decision's made, and I need you to understand what we're dealing with. Before Samantha could respond, her phone buzzed again. Another text from Gerald. I'm coming over tonight. We need to talk face to face. Don't try to stop me. Kim's expression went cold. That's not a request. That's a threat. He's telling you he's coming to your home whether you want him there or not. It's just talk. He's angry. Angry men who've been drinking make bad decisions. Kim pulled out his own phone, typing rapidly. Vincent? Yeah, I need eyes on an address. Samantha's building in Crown Heights. Guy named Gerald Cooper might show up tonight. Don't engage unless he tries to enter. Just watch and report. Yeah, within the hour. Thanks. He hung up before Samantha could protest. She stood, anger finally breaking through fear. You can't just... Can't what? Protect you? Keep your ex-boyfriend from forcing his way into your apartment at night? Kim's voice was sharp. This is what I do, Samantha. I control situations before they control me, and right now, Gerald is trying to control you through intimidation. By wanting to talk? By ignoring your boundaries and demanding access he no longer has. You ended the relationship. You told him to leave. He doesn't get to decide when and how he comes back into your life. Kim moved closer, not threatening but intense. If he shows up tonight, he doesn't get past the lobby. My people will redirect him, firmly but non-violently, unless he tries to force entry, in which case they'll stop him by whatever means necessary. I don't want him hurt. Then he better not try anything stupid, because I won't let anyone threaten you or Rosalia. Not him, not anyone. The conviction in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it felt oddly reassuring. Samantha had spent 6 years protecting Rosalia alone, making every decision solo, handling every crisis without backup. The idea of someone else sharing that burden, someone with resources and ruthlessness, was tempting despite its dangers. "What happens if the test comes back positive?" she asked quietly. "If you're really her father?" Kim was silent for a long moment, staring at the cheap prints on her walls like they held answers. "Then everything changes. For all of us. I'll have enemies who'll see her as leverage. Allies who'll use her to bind me tighter to their interests. Every person in my world will know I have a weakness, and weaknesses get exploited." "So you're saying we'd be in danger?" "I'm saying you're already in danger. The moment I walked into Vincent's penthouse and saw that necklace, the moment your ex-boyfriend noticed something was different, you became part of my world whether you want to be or not." He met her eyes. "The question isn't whether there's danger. The question is whether I can protect you from it. And can you? I've kept myself alive for 30 years in a world designed to kill me. I've survived assassination attempts, federal investigations, gang wars, and hostile takeovers. I know how to protect what's mine." He paused. "If the test comes back positive, if Rosalia is my daughter, then she's mine. And I protect what's mine." The possessive phrasing should have angered her. Instead, it settled something in Samantha's chest. She'd been alone for so long, fighting so hard, that the idea of someone else taking up the burden felt like oxygen after drowning. "The results come back Friday," she said. "Friday," Kim confirmed. 48 hours, then we know for certain, and we figure out what comes next." He left shortly after, slipping back into the night like smoke. Samantha locked the door behind him, checked on Rosalia twice to make sure she was still breathing, still safe, still whole. Then sat in the dark living room until dawn, wondering what Friday's test results would bring. Her phone stayed silent. Gerald never showed up. Whatever Kim's people had done worked, because when morning came, there were no new texts. No angry voicemails, no pounding on her door at midnight. Just silence, and waiting. And the weight of knowing that in 48 hours, everything would change. The DNA test had been sent to the lab. Science was working its magic, comparing genetic markers, confirming or denying what Kim's gut and Samantha's heart already knew. Rosalia was his daughter. The math was undeniable. The resemblance was unmistakable. The necklace was proof written in silver and Korean characters. But they needed the test to make it official, to make it real, to force them both to deal with the reality they'd been avoiding since the moment Kim saw that phoenix pendant catching light around a 6-year-old's neck. Friday couldn't come fast enough, and simultaneously, Samantha wished it would never arrive. The DNA results arrived Friday morning at 8:47 a.m. via encrypted email. Samantha stared at her phone screen in the bathroom, hand shaking so badly she almost dropped it into the sink. 3 lines of text that changed everything. Probability of paternity. 99.9% Kim Wong is the biological father of Rosalia Dudley. Dr. Raymond Smith, MD. Her phone rang immediately, Kim's number flashing across the screen. "You saw the results?" His voice was careful, controlled, but she could hear something underneath. Tension, maybe fear, possibly relief. Yeah. Silence stretched between them, heavy with implications. What did you say when science confirmed that a drunken mistake had created a human being? When a powerful criminal's genetics lived in your 6-year-old daughter's DNA? When every certainty about your life had just been rewritten in biological code? I'm coming over, Kim said finally. We need to talk, in person. Figure out what this means. Rosalia's at daycare until 3. Good. That gives us time. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was different. Softer. Samantha, this changes things. For all of us. Everything we've built separately. We need to rebuild together now. I know. I'll be there in 30 minutes. He arrived in 25, looking less composed than usual. His suit was impeccable as always, but his eyes were red-rimmed, and Samantha wondered if he'd slept at all. She let him in, made coffee because her hands needed something to do, and they sat at her small kitchen table like two strangers negotiating a hostage exchange. I called my lawyers, Kim said without preamble. Had them draw up paperwork last night. Trust funds, education accounts, medical coverage, everything's in Rosalia's name. She's set for life now, regardless of what happens between us. Thank you. The words felt inadequate. It's not charity. She's mine. My responsibility. My daughter. He said the word carefully, testing its weight. But money doesn't protect her from what my life brings. We need to discuss real security, real changes. You mentioned moving us. I own a building in Park Slope. Renovated brownstone, 6 units. Top floor is empty. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, security system, doorman, cameras on every entrance. I can have you moved in by Monday. Movers, furniture, everything handled. Samantha's coffee went cold in her hands. You're serious? You want to uproot our entire lives because her father is a target for every rival gang in New York? Yes. Because the Russian mob has been looking for leverage against me for 6 months? Absolutely. Because I have enemies who would kill a child to make a point? Without question. His voice hardened. I didn't ask for this. Neither did you. But here we are, and I won't let Rosalia become collateral damage in my war. The words hung in the air, brutal and honest. Samantha set down her mug before she could drop it. I didn't ask for this either, she said quietly. One night 6 years ago doesn't mean I signed up for gang wars and criminal empires. I know, and I'm sorry. Sorry for getting drunk enough to black out. Sorry for leaving without a word. Sorry that my choices put you and Rosalia in danger. Kim leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But I can't undo the past. I can only try to make the future safer. And that means accepting my help, even if you hate needing it. What about my job? Rosalia's daycare? Our whole life is here in Crown Heights. Your job pays barely enough to survive, and you deserve better. I'll cover everything. Rent, food, expenses, whatever you need. You can work if you want to, but you don't have to scramble anymore. Rosalia's daycare is in a building with no security, where anyone could walk in off the street. I'll find her something better. As for your life here? He gestured at the cramped apartment with peeling paint and windows that didn't quite close. This isn't living. This is surviving. I can give you both better. At what cost? Becoming dependent on you? Losing our autonomy? At the cost of letting me protect my daughter, that's it. That's all I'm asking. Kim's voice gentled. I'm not trying to control you, Samantha. I'm trying to keep you both alive long enough to figure out how to be a family. The word family landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading outward. Samantha hadn't had family since her grandmother died when she was 19. Hadn't imagined building one with anyone, let alone a crime boss who'd gotten her pregnant during a blackout drunk one-night stand. What about Gerald? She asked. He's been calling again. Texts, voicemails. He knows something's changed. Knows you're back in the picture. Kim's expression went cold. What's he saying? She showed him her phone. 23 missed calls since Wednesday, 47 texts. The most recent one, sent at 2 a.m. You can't just replace me with some gangster. I've been Rosalia's father for 2 years. That has to count for something. We need to talk. Today. Does he know about the test? Kim asked, scrolling through the messages. No, but he's guessing. He's not stupid, just desperate. Samantha paused. He lost his job 3 months ago. Been drinking more. Getting paranoid. I didn't realize how bad it was until I ended things. Background check showed gambling debts. $60,000 to some people who don't accept late payments. Kim set the phone down. He's in trouble, Samantha. Financial trouble that makes people do stupid things. And now he sees you potentially connected to someone with money and power. That makes you valuable. Makes Rosalia valuable. You think he'd try to use her as leverage? I think desperate men rationalize anything. Tell themselves whatever story lets them sleep at night. Kim stood, pacing to the window. I'm having him watched full time now. My people tracking his movements, his communications, his associates. If he tries anything... Before he could finish, Samantha's apartment buzzer rang. Aggressive, insistent. 3 long buzzes followed by pounding on the building's front door hard enough to hear from 3 floors up. Kim was at the window instantly. That him? Samantha looked down. Gerald stood on the stoop, finger jamming the buzzer repeatedly. Even from 3 floors up, she could see he'd been drinking. Stumbling slightly, gesturing angrily at the door. Don't answer, Kim said quietly. He'll just keep... Don't. Answer. Not a suggestion, a command. Kim pulled out his phone, sent a rapid text. My people are 2 minutes out. They'll handle him. Handle him how? Redirect him somewhere he can sleep it off. Get him away from your building. Make it clear he's not welcome here anymore. Gerald's shouting carried up through the windows. Samantha, I know you're up there. We need to talk about this. You can't just cut me out. Neighbors were starting to notice. Old Mrs. Logan from 2B poked her head out, annoyed. The bodega owner across the street watched with interest. This was exactly the kind of scene Samantha had spent 6 years avoiding. Drama, attention, anything that made them memorable. A black SUV pulled up. 2 men got out. Vincent's people. Samantha recognized one from the penthouse. They approached Gerald with professional calm, speaking too quietly for Samantha to hear. Gerald tried to push past them. One man caught his arm, not roughly, just firmly. Guided him toward the SUV with the kind of efficiency that spoke of practice. They're taking him where? Samantha asked. Somewhere safe. Somewhere he can sober up. They'll make sure he understands that showing up drunk at your apartment at 9 in the morning isn't acceptable. Kim watched until the SUV pulled away, Gerald visible through the tinted windows, gesturing wildly. He's not going to stop, Samantha, not unless we make him. Make him how? Kim turned from the window. I can make him leave New York, permanently, give him money, a ticket to somewhere warm, a fresh start. All he has to do is sign away his parental rights and never contact you again. You're talking about paying him to disappear. I'm talking about solving a problem before it becomes dangerous. Kim moved closer. Gerald's drowning. In debt, in alcohol, in delusion about what he means to Rosalia. Men who are drowning pull others down with them. I won't let him pull you or my daughter down. She'll ask about him. Wonder where he went. And you'll tell her the truth. That he chose to leave. That he wasn't the man she needed him to be. Kim's voice was firm. Kids are resilient. They recover from loss. What they don't recover from is being used as bargaining chips in adult conflicts. Samantha sank into her chair, exhaustion crashing over her. This is happening too fast. 3 days ago, I had a job and an apartment and a routine. Now you're talking about moving us, paying off my ex-boyfriend, reconstructing our entire lives. 3 days ago, you didn't know your daughter's father was alive and looking for her. Now you do. And with that knowledge comes responsibility, protection, change. Kim crouched beside her chair, bringing them eye level. I'm not trying to take over your life. I'm trying to save it. There's a difference. Is there? Because from here, it looks like you're making all the decisions. Then make one. Right now. Do you want my help or not? Do you want me and Rosalia's life or not? Do you trust me enough to let me protect you both? He didn't blink, didn't soften. Because if the answer is no, I'll walk away. Set up the trust fund. Maintain distance. Be the father who sends checks but never shows up. But if the answer is yes, if you're willing to try this, then we do it properly. Security, relocation, the full commitment. Samantha looked at him, this dangerous man with her daughter's eyes, offering salvation that came with strings she couldn't fully see yet. But Gerald was spiraling. Her apartment had peeling paint and drafty windows. Her job barely covered rent. She'd been surviving, not living, and Rosalia deserved better. Yes, she said quietly, but we do this together. Partners, not you making all the calls. Kim nodded slowly. Partners. I can work with that. And Gerald? I'll handle Gerald. You handle Rosalia. Tell her we're moving, that it's an upgrade, that good things are happening. He stood, offering his hand. We start Monday. Movers, new apartment, fresh start. But first, we tell her together. Tonight. That I'm her father and I'm not going anywhere. Samantha took his hand, let him pull her up. She's going to have questions. Kids always do. We'll answer them honestly. Kim squeezed her hand once, then let go. We're doing this. All of us. Together. It was the closest thing to a promise he could make, and somehow, standing in her cramped kitchen with coffee gone cold and Gerald's shouting still echoing in her ears, Samantha chose to believe him. Smash that like button if you're rooting for Kim to protect his daughter. This story is about to get darker before it gets better. Comment below, Team Kim or Team Gerald? Let us know where you stand, because what happens next will change everything. Gerald's desperation is about to lead him down a dangerous path, and the consequences will test everything Kim's built. Gerald Cooper's gambling problem started small, the way these things always did. $20 on a basketball game, $50 on poker at a friend's house, $100 on horses at Aqueduct Racetrack when he was feeling lucky. The kind of thing that felt harmless until suddenly it wasn't. Until the debts accumulated like interest, compounding into a number he couldn't pay and couldn't escape. $60,000. He owed $60,000 to people who didn't accept excuses or payment plans or promises to do better. People who'd already reminded him twice, once with words, once with his pinky finger bent backward until it snapped like a dry branch, that patience had limits. Which was why, when two Russian men approached him outside his brother's apartment in Brighton Beach on Tuesday night, Gerald didn't run. He listened. You have woman with child, the larger one said, his accent thick enough to cut. His smile was absent, his eyes dead. Child of Kim Wong, yes? Gerald's mouth went dry. His broken pinky throbbed in remembered pain. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie. We watch. We see. We know everything. The man pulled out a photo. Rosalia leaving daycare. Her phoenix necklace catching sunlight. Little girl with Korean face and black skin. Only one man in New York fits that description. What do you want? Gerald's voice came out smaller than he intended. The second man, smaller but with eyes like a shark, flat, emotionless, eternally hungry, stepped closer. We want leverage. Kim Wong took our territory on Delancey Street, pushed us out of distribution networks we built for 5 years. We take his daughter, we get our territory back. Simple business. No. Gerald backed against the wall, brick rough against his shoulders. I'm not helping you hurt a kid, I'm not that desperate. Who said hurt? Shark Eyes smiled, showing too many teeth. We borrow. For a few days. Convince Kim Wong to return what he stole. Then we give her back. Nobody gets hurt. Child goes home. Everyone wins. You're insane. We're practical. And you? The large man held up a folder, pages visible inside. You owe Dmitry Volkov $60,000. Plus interest accumulating daily. That's $83,000 now. You have this money? Gerald didn't answer. Couldn't answer. The number was impossible. A mountain he'd never climb. Didn't think so. Shark Eyes leaned against the wall beside him, casual as neighbors discussing weather. But we can make it disappear. All of it. Debts erased like they never existed. Plus 200,000 cash. All you do is help us get the child for a few days. Take her from daycare, bring her to us, then disappear. Start over somewhere warm. Colombia maybe. Argentina. Somewhere Dimitri's accountants never find you. I can't. You can. You know the mother. You know the schedule. You're trusted. The daycare lets you pick up the child, yes? You've done it before? The large man's smile was cold, reptilian. And if you refuse? Well, Dmitri doesn't like bad debts. Usually he breaks more than fingers. Gerald's pinky throbbed. They'd done it casually, like snapping a pencil, barely looking at him. Dmitri had watched, sipping espresso, explaining that next time would be his kneecap. The time after that? His spine. The Bratva didn't make idle threats. They made promises, written in bone and scar tissue. How do I know you won't hurt her? Gerald asked, hating how weak he sounded. We give you our word. Shark Eyes pulled out a burner phone, cheap and untraceable. Once we have child, you disappear. Take the money, start over somewhere warm, leave Kim Wong and the woman behind. Simple, clean. Everyone gets what they want. $200,000. Enough to erase his debts and build a new life somewhere the Bratva couldn't find him. Enough to stop looking over his shoulder every time he heard footsteps. Enough to finally breathe without the weight of debt crushing his chest. Nobody gets hurt? Gerald repeated, needing to hear it again. Nobody gets hurt. We hold her for leverage. Kim gives back our territory. We return her to her mother. Simple business transaction. Gerald took the phone. The weight of it felt like damnation. Kim stood at Samantha's kitchen window 3 nights later, watching the street below. Midnight had passed an hour ago. Gerald still hadn't shown up at the apartment despite his threatening texts. Vincent's people reported he'd been seen entering an abandoned warehouse in Red Hook earlier that evening, known Bratva territory. He made a deal, Kim said quietly, more to himself than Samantha. She sat at the table, exhaustion carved into her face. What kind of deal? The kind desperate men make when they're drowning and someone offers them a life raft made of lies. He turned to face her. Gerald's gambling debts are owed to the Bratva, Dmitry Volkov specifically, which means they know about Rosalia. They know she's mine. How long have they known? Since Gerald found out, probably. He doesn't have the discipline to keep secrets, especially when Russians are breaking his fingers for missed payments. Kim pulled out his phone, pulling up surveillance photos. My people followed him Tuesday night. He met with 2 of Dimitri's soldiers. They talked for 20 minutes outside his brother's apartment. Then Gerald left with a burner phone. Samantha's face went pale. What does that mean? It means they're planning something. Using Gerald as access because he knows Rosalia. Knows her schedule. Knows when you're vulnerable. Kim's jaw tightened with barely controlled anger. The Bratva's been trying to reclaim the Delancey Street corridor for months. I've blocked them at every turn, dismantled their distribution networks, cost them millions in lost revenue. A child makes perfect leverage. Take my daughter. Force me to negotiate. It's textbook organized crime strategy. They wouldn't. They would. And they will if we give them the chance. He crossed to the table, crouching so they were eye level. I need to move you both. Tonight. Right now. The Park Slope building I mentioned. It's secure, monitored, and far enough from Bratva territory to give us breathing room while I figure out how to end this. What about my job? My things? We can't just... I'll have people pack your apartment tomorrow. Your job? He paused, choosing words carefully. Vincent's wife runs a nonprofit, cultural arts program for immigrant families. She's been looking for an administrator with grant writing experience, better pay, better hours, and you work for someone I trust. Someone who won't ask questions when security becomes necessary. You're reorganizing my entire life. I'm keeping you and Rosalia alive. Kim's voice was firm. Gerald's working with people who don't bluff, who don't make empty threats, who see children as tools, not humans. If they decide to take Rosalia, they'll do it efficiently and without remorse. And then I'll have to negotiate for my daughter's life while trying not to destroy everything I've built. Samantha was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then she nodded slowly. Okay. You're right. Gerald's working with dangerous people, and I can't protect Rosalia from them alone. I don't have resources or connections or muscle. You do. She met his eyes, showing the steel underneath the exhaustion. But if we're doing this, if I'm accepting your help and moving into your building and letting you reorganize our lives, then I need honesty. All of it. No more revelations drip-fed when it's convenient for you. Kim nodded. Fair. Starting with this. What's your endgame? With me? With Rosalia? What do you actually want from this arrangement? He was quiet, considering. I want my daughter safe. I want her to grow up knowing her father chose to be present, not absent. He stopped, jaw working. I want to be the man my mother thought I could be before this life swallowed me, before violence became my first language, and control became my religion. That's not really an answer. It's the closest I've got right now. Kim stood, offering his hand. Come on. David's bringing Rosalia to the new place from her sleepover. We should be there when she arrives so it's not scary, so it feels like family, not kidnapping. Samantha took his hand, let him pull her up. This is happening fast. That's how life works in my world. Things are calm until suddenly they're not. You adapt, or you die. He grabbed her jacket from the hook by the door. But we're not dying. We're adapting. All three of us. They left through the back exit, Kim's people flanking them like shadows. A car waited in the alley, black sedan, tinted windows, engine already running. As they pulled away from her building, Samantha watched her old life disappear in the rearview mirror. The cramped apartment where she'd raised Rosalia alone, the bodega where they bought groceries, the laundromat where she'd met Gerald 2 years ago, back when he seemed stable and kind. All of it receding into the past as they drove toward Park Slope, toward the brownstone, toward a future Samantha couldn't quite imagine but was choosing to trust. The Park Slope brownstone was beautiful in ways that made Samantha want to cry. Pre-war architecture with crown molding and hardwood floors, windows that let in morning light like a blessing. A kitchen twice the size of her entire old apartment, with appliances that looked like they belonged in magazines. 3 bedrooms. One for her, one for Rosalia, one that Kim said would be his office when he stayed over. Rosalia was asleep on the couch when they arrived, curled under David's wife's jacket. David himself sat nearby, reading on his phone with the exhausted patience of a man who'd spent the evening entertaining a 6-year-old. Any problems? Kim asked quietly. None. She asked about her mom. I told her Samantha was handling some adult business and would be here soon. She ate dinner, watched cartoons, fell asleep around 10. David stood, gathering his things. The building's secure. I had Vincent's guys sweep it twice. No bugs, no surveillance, no weak points. Good. Kim handed him an envelope. For your trouble. Not necessary, Hyung, but appreciated. David nodded to Samantha, then left through the service entrance. Samantha crossed to the couch, brushing Rosalia's hair back from her face. Her daughter looked so small, so vulnerable. The phoenix necklace glinted against her collar, catching the soft lighting. "She's beautiful," Kim said softly from behind her. "She has your smile, your strength. She has your eyes, your stubbornness. Then God help us both." He moved to stand beside her. Not quite touching, but close enough to feel his presence. "I know this isn't what you planned. I know I'm disrupting everything. But I meant what I said earlier. We're doing this together. Partners. You get a say in how we raise her, how we keep her safe, how we build this family." Family. Samantha tested the word. "I haven't had one of those in a long time. Neither have I. Not since my mother died." Kim's voice was quiet, vulnerable in ways she suspected he rarely allowed. "But maybe we can figure it out together. Make something that works, even if it doesn't look like the picture-perfect version. Nothing about this is picture-perfect." "No, but maybe it's real. Maybe that's better." They stood there watching Rosalia sleep, two strangers trying to become parents, trying to become partners, trying to protect a child from dangers neither could fully control. Outside, in the darkness, Gerald Cooper sat in his brother's apartment staring at the burner phone, wondering if he'd just made a deal with the devil. And in Brighton Beach, Dmitry Volkov looked at photos of Rosalia and smiled, already planning how to use Kim Wong's weakness to reclaim what he'd lost. The pieces were moving into place. The trap was being set. And in 3 days, everything would explode in ways none of them could fully anticipate. But for now, in the brownstone in Park Slope, there was just family. Imperfect, complicated, and somehow exactly what all three of them needed. Thursday afternoon felt ordinary, too ordinary, the kind of calm that made Kim's instincts scream warnings he couldn't quite articulate. Samantha dropped Rosalia at the new daycare, a facility in Park Slope with security cameras, buzz-in entry, and staff who'd been thoroughly vetted by Kim's people. Then she headed to her first day at the cultural arts nonprofit, working in an office with actual windows and co-workers who didn't treat her like she was invisible. Rosalia's pickup time was 4:30 p.m. Samantha's phone reminder went off at 3:45, same as always. She gathered her things, said goodbye to her new co-workers who actually seemed interested in her opinions, and headed for the subway. Her phone buzzed at 4:15. "Gerald. I'll get her today, Sam. You work late. I'll bring her by around 6. Her blood turned to ice. She typed back immediately, fingers fumbling. "No, I'm picking her up now. Don't go near the daycare." "Gerald. Too late, already here. See you at 6. "We need to talk anyway." Samantha's hands shook as she called the daycare. It rang 4 times before the director answered, her voice cheerful and oblivious. "Hi, this is Samantha Dudley. My daughter Rosalia. Has anyone picked her up yet?" "Oh yes, Mr. Cooper signed her out about 10 minutes ago. He said you'd called ahead to approve it." The director's tone shifted, catching Samantha's panic. "Was there a problem?" "He had ID, and he's been on the approved pickup list for 2 years. I didn't approve anything. He's not authorized anymore. I removed him from the list Monday." Samantha's voice cracked with fear and fury. "He took my daughter without permission. Ma'am, I'm so sorry, but without written notification, I had no way of knowing." Samantha hung up, immediately calling Kim. He answered on the first ring, like he'd been waiting. "Gerald took Rosalia." The words came out strangled, each syllable fighting through the terror clogging her throat. "He picked her up from daycare 10 minutes ago. He's not answering my calls." Silence, heavy and dangerous. Then Kim's voice, cold as winter and sharp as broken glass. "Where are you?" 43rd and 9th, heading to the subway. "Stay there. Vincent's sending a car. Don't move. Don't try to find her yourself." The line went dead. Samantha stood on the corner, terror clawing up her throat. She tried Gerald again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. She texted, "Where are you? Where's Rosalia?" No response. Nothing. Just the terrible silence of a phone that wasn't being answered because the person holding it didn't want to be found. A black sedan pulled up 3 minutes later. Jun-ho at the wheel, his expression grim as death. "Get in." Samantha slid into the back seat, her body moving on autopilot while her mind screamed, "Where's Kim?" "Already moving. He wants you at the brownstone where it's secure. We're tracking Gerald's phone now." Jun-ho pulled into traffic with aggressive precision. "He's in Red Hook, the warehouse district." "Red Hook? Why would he?" Realization hit like cold water. The Bratva. Yeah. Jun-ho's jaw tightened. "We're mobilizing now. Every soldier, every favor Kim's owed, every resource we have, we'll get her back." "Will she be okay? Will they hurt her?" The question came out small, childlike, the voice of a mother facing every parent's nightmare. Jun-ho was quiet for too long. "Kim won't let that happen." It wasn't an answer. It was a prayer. Gerald's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Rosalia sat beside him in the back seat of Dimitri's car, clutching her backpack and looking confused, but not yet scared. The driver, one of Shark Eyes' associates, navigated Brooklyn streets with practiced efficiency, heading toward Red Hook. "Where are we going?" Rosalia asked for the third time, her voice still trusting because she knew Gerald had let him read her bedtime stories and fix her snacks. "Just on an adventure. Like I said." Gerald's voice sounded hollow even to his own ears. "Your mom will meet us soon." "But she always picks me up." "Why didn't she come today?" "She's working late. It's fine. Everything's fine." Nothing was fine. The moment Gerald had seen Rosalia waiting at the daycare, smiling at him with trust he didn't deserve, he'd wanted to back out, wanted to grab her hand and run. Tell Dimitri and Shark Eyes to fuck themselves, accept whatever consequences came from breaking a deal with the Bratva. But Shark Eyes had been watching from across the street, and Dimitri's men were waiting at the warehouse, and the gambling debts were real, and the broken finger was real, and the threat of worse violence was real. So Gerald had signed her out, had buckled her into the car seat they'd provided, had let himself believe the lies Shark Eyes had told him. Nobody gets hurt. Just leverage. A few days, then she goes home. They pulled up to the abandoned building in Red Hook 20 minutes later. Rusted metal walls, broken windows, graffiti covering every surface like urban camouflage. The driver parked in back, where trees blocked the view from the street. "Come on," Gerald said, unbuckling Rosalia with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. "I don't like it here." Her voice was smaller now, fear creeping in at the edges. "I want Mommy. Soon, I promise." The lie tasted like ash and broken glass. Shark Eyes met them at the loading dock, his smile showing too many teeth. "Good. Very good. Boss is pleased." "Where's my money?" Gerald tried to sound firm, tried to sound like a man in control instead of a coward selling a child. "Inside, once we confirm." They entered through a side door. The warehouse interior was gutted, empty except for old pallets and the smell of rust and decay, and something darker Gerald didn't want to name. Dmitri Volkov sat in a folding chair near the back office, flanked by 6 men with guns visible on their hips. "Ah," Dmitri said, smiling. His accent was less thick than his soldiers. His suit expensive, his hands clean. "The little princess. Come here, darling." Rosalia pressed against Gerald's leg, her hand finding the phoenix necklace at her throat. "I want my mommy. Soon, soon. First, we make a phone call to your daddy." Dmitri pulled out his phone, already dialing. "Gerald, you've done well. Your money." Shark Eyes handed Gerald a duffel bag. He opened it with shaking hands. Cash. Stacks of it. More money than he'd ever seen in one place. "Now go," Dmitri said, his voice pleasant but carrying an edge that made Gerald's survival instincts scream. "Before Kim Wong's people find you here." Gerald looked at Rosalia. She stared back, confusion shifting to fear as understanding dawned in her 6-year-old mind. "Gerald, what's happening?" "I'm sorry," he whispered. Then he ran. He made it to the door before guilt stopped him, turned back. You promised she wouldn't be hurt. She won't be. Unless her father is stupid. Dimitri's smile was cold, reptilian. Now leave, or become collateral damage yourself. Gerald ran. Down the loading dock, through the alley, into the street. He ran until his lungs burned and his legs gave out. Then he crouched behind a dumpster and vomited, the duffel bag heavy with blood money beside him. Inside the warehouse, Rosalia started crying. Dimitri dialed Kim's number and waited, already savoring the sound of a powerful man brought to his knees. Kim's phone rang at 6:17 p.m. Unknown number, he answered immediately. Kim Wong. Dimitri's voice was cheerful, performatively pleasant. We have something of yours. If you hurt her? Hurt her? Why would we hurt her? She's valuable. Leverage. Yes? You took our Delancey Street territory 6 months ago. We take your daughter. Fair trade, I think. Kim's vision went red. Vincent, sitting across from him in the war room, watched with concern. Junho was already pulling up maps of Red Hook. David was on the phone with their NYPD contact. What do you want? Kim forced his voice steady despite the rage and terror tearing through his chest. Simple. Give back our territory. All of it. Transfer complete by tomorrow midnight. Then we return the child. Easy, yes? And if I refuse? Then... Dimitri paused for dramatic effect. Accidents happen. Children are fragile. Would be terrible if something went wrong. Kim closed his eyes, breathing through the violent screaming in his blood. I need proof she's alive. Of course. Rustling sounds. Then Rosalia's voice, small and terrified. Daddy? The word punched through Kim like a bullet. She'd never called him that before, barely knew him. But in her fear, she'd reached for the only parent she could name. I'm coming, Rosalia. His voice cracked despite his best efforts. I'm coming right now. You're going to be okay. Daddy, I'm scared. Dimitri's voice returned. Touching. You have until tomorrow midnight. After that? Silence. Well? We'll see. The line went dead. Kim stood, his expression carved from stone. Vincent, get everyone, every soldier, every enforcer, every person who owes us a favor. I want that warehouse surrounded within the hour. Hyung, if we go in hard, they might kill her if we don't. Kim's voice was ice and fury. Find Gerald first. I want to know exactly how they got her, who helped, what the plan was. Junho was already out the door. David pulled up building blueprints on his laptop. Vincent made calls, his voice rapid-fire Korean. And Kim stood in the center of the chaos, every carefully constructed wall crumbling as fear, real, visceral, parental fear, consumed him. Samantha burst into the war room 30 minutes later, escorted by Vincent's people. Where is she? Red Hook, Bratva Warehouse. Kim met her eyes, and for the first time since they'd met, he let her see past the armor to the terrified man underneath. We're going in at 2 a.m. We plan, we execute, we bring her home. Why wait? They have her now. Because we do this smart, or we get her killed. Going in blind, without intel, without a plan. That's how children die in crossfire. Kim's hands were steady as he loaded his gun, muscle memory taking over. We wait. We prepare. Then we get our daughter back. Promise me. I promise. He'd made that promise before, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. I will not lose her. Not to them. Not to anyone. It was the first time he'd said our daughter instead of my daughter. Samantha caught it, and despite the terror, despite the nightmare unfolding, she nodded. They were in this together now. For better or worse. Until they got Rosalia back safe. Or until Kim burned the entire Bratva operation to the ground trying. The war room in Kim's 4th-floor apartment looked like a military operation. Maps spread across the dining table showing every entrance, exit, and sightline. Surveillance photos tacked to walls. Weapons laid out with surgical precision. Guns, knives, body armor, flashbangs. Vincent coordinated with their NYPD contacts, ensuring patrol cars would be conveniently absent from Red Hook tonight. Jun-ho assembled the assault team, 12 men, all trained, all loyal, all understanding that tonight's operation was personal in ways that made it more dangerous. David pulled up blueprints of the Red Hook warehouse on his laptop. 3 entrances, loading dock in back, side door on the east wall, main entrance facing the street. Windows are boarded, but the second-floor offices have gaps in the barricades. Could work for sniper positioning. How many guards? Kim asked, his voice steady despite the chaos churning inside him. 8 confirmed outside. Unknown number inside, but based on thermal imaging, at least 12 heat signatures. Jun-ho pointed at surveillance photos taken an hour ago. They're not expecting retaliation this fast. They think you'll negotiate first. Try to buy time. They thought wrong. Kim checked his gun with practiced efficiency. Magazine loaded, chamber clear, safety on. 20 years of violence had made these movements automatic. Dmitri underestimated how quickly I'd mobilize. That's his first mistake. His last will be thinking I care more about territory than my daughter. Samantha stood near the window, arms wrapped around herself. She hadn't spoken since arriving, just watched Kim transform from careful crime boss into something colder. Something lethal. The man who'd read Rosalia bedtime stories had disappeared, replaced by the enforcer who'd built an empire on calculated brutality. You should stay here, Kim said quietly, moving to stand beside her. She's my daughter. Which is why you need to stay safe. If this goes wrong... He stopped, jaw tightening. If I don't make it back, Rosalia needs her mother. It won't go wrong. Samantha turned to face him, and Kim saw steel underneath the fear. You promised you'd bring her home. I'm holding you to that. I keep my promises. Kim touched her hand briefly, a moment of connection before violence. When this is over, when she's safe, we'll figure out how to be a family. But first, I have to do what I'm good at, which is destroying people who threaten what's mine. At 1:30 a.m. they moved. 4 vehicles left the Park Slope brownstone in different directions, converging on Red Hook from separate angles. Kim rode with Jun-ho and 2 others, weapons checked and loaded, comms units tested. Vincent coordinated from a surveillance van 2 blocks away, monitoring police scanners and thermal cameras. David managed communications, ready to alert them if NYPD got wind of the operation despite their arrangements. The warehouse loomed dark against the night sky. A few lights flickered inside, but mostly it was shadows and rust and the smell of industrial decay. Kim's team approached from the east, using abandoned buildings for cover. Vincent's team took the loading dock. Jun-ho's men positioned themselves at the main entrance, waiting for Kim's signal. All units in position. Vincent's voice crackled through the comm. Copy, Kim said, his heart hammering despite his controlled exterior. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, go. They breached simultaneously. Kim's team burst through the side door, weapons raised. The first guard went down before he could shout. Jun-ho's knife to the throat. Quick and silent. The kind of death that came before understanding. The second guard managed to draw his gun before Kim shot him twice in the chest. Suppressed rounds, but still loud enough to alert others. Shouts erupted from deeper in the warehouse. Gunfire answered, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness like lightning. Kim's team moved like a machine, cover and advance, suppressing fire, controlled aggression honed by years of practice. 2 more guards fell in the initial assault. A third tried to flee and caught bullets in the back from Vincent's team breaching the loading dock. Vincent's voice came through the comm. Loading dock secure, 3 hostiles down, moving to second floor. Kim's team cleared the ground floor methodically. Empty pallets, rusted equipment, blood pooling beneath bodies that would need disposal later. No sign of Rosalia. Fear clawed at his chest, but he pushed it down. Focus. Efficiency. Get to his daughter before Dmitri decided to cut his losses. They reached the back office, door locked, reinforced. Kim nodded to Jun-ho, who placed a breaching charge. Fire in the hole. The explosion blew the door off its hinges, splinters flying like shrapnel. Kim went in first, gun raised, ready to shoot anything that moved. Rosalia sat in a corner, hands zip-tied in front of her, tears streaming down her face. Alive. Unhurt. Clutching the phoenix necklace like a lifeline. Relief hit Kim like a physical blow. He crossed the room in 3 strides, dropping to his knees beside her. I'm here. You're safe now. I've got you. Daddy! She threw herself at him, small arms wrapping around his neck with desperate strength. He held her carefully. Afraid his hands, covered in blood, still holding a gun, would somehow break her. Jun-ho cut the zip ties with efficient movements. Kim lifted Rosalia, tucking her against his chest. She buried her face in his shoulder, sobbing with the relief of rescue. He rubbed her back, murmuring in Korean, words his mother had said to him when he was small and terrified, before this life swallowed him. Where's Dmitri? He asked Jun-ho, his voice deadly calm despite the emotional storm raging inside. 2nd floor, barricaded in the old manager's office with 4 men. Kim stood, Rosalia still in his arms. Every instinct screamed to get her out immediately, to run from this place of violence and fear. But he'd made a different promise, to make sure the bad men could never hurt her again. Get her out, now. Samantha's waiting in the van. Hyung, you should get her out. His voice left no room for argument. Samantha needs to see she's safe. I need to finish this. Jun-ho hesitated, then nodded. He took Rosalia gently, and she clung to Kim for a moment longer, whimpering. I'm not leaving you, Kim said softly, touching her face with careful fingers. I just need to make sure the bad men can never hurt you again. Then I'll come home. I promise. You promised before, and you came back. And I always will. Always. He kissed her forehead, then let Jun-ho carry her out. Watched until they disappeared through the side door, heading for the surveillance van where Samantha waited. Then Kim turned to Vincent, and the man who'd been a father disappeared. The enforcer returned, cold and efficient and absolutely focused. Clear the building. Everyone out except Dmitri and his men. What are you planning? Vincent asked, though his expression suggested he already knew. Justice. It took 20 minutes to secure the 2nd floor. Dimitri's men fought harder than the guards downstairs, desperation lending them brief courage. 3 died in the hallway. Caught in crossfire, they couldn't win. The 4th tried to surrender and caught a bullet for his cowardice. Kim didn't take prisoners tonight. By 2:47 a.m., only Dmitri remained, barricaded in the manager's office with the door blocked by a heavy desk. Kim stood outside, reloading his gun with methodical calm. Come out, Dmitri. So you can kill me? I think not. Fear edged the Russian's voice now, replacing earlier confidence. You kidnapped my daughter, put her in a cage with criminals, made her cry, made her think she'd never see her mother again. Kim's voice was flat, emotionless. Death is the least you deserve. But I'm reasonable. Open the door. We talk. Talk about what? You won already. I have nothing to negotiate with. You have your life. For now. Kim gestured to Vincent. Burn it. Vincent produced a gasoline canister, dousing the walls, the floor, the barricaded door. The smell filled the hallway, sharp and chemical. Dimitri's shouting turned panicked. Wait, Kim, wait, I'll do anything. Kim struck a match, watching it burn down toward his fingers. Give me one reason not to burn you alive. I'll leave New York, take my operation, take everything. Just let me live. Your operation's already mine. Your territory, your dealers, your protection rackets. I'm taking all of it. The question is whether you get to see tomorrow. Kim held the match steady, flame dancing. You put your hands on my daughter. You made her afraid. You used a 6-year-old child as leverage in your pathetic attempt to reclaim territory you lost because you're weak. For that, I should burn you alive and piss on the ashes. Please. Dimitri's voice cracked with genuine terror. I didn't hurt her. She's fine. She's traumatized. She'll have nightmares for months. She'll flinch at strangers. That's hurt, Dimitri. That's damage you caused because you thought a child was acceptable collateral in your war with me. Kim dropped the match. The gasoline ignited instantly. Flames raced up the walls, across the floor, consuming everything. Dimitri screamed, the desk scraping as he tried desperately to move it. Too heavy, too slow. Smoke poured into the office through gaps around the door. Kim watched for exactly 10 seconds, letting Dimitri feel what terror truly meant. Then he nodded to Vincent. Put it out. Vincent doused the flames with a fire extinguisher, chemical foam covering everything. The door burst open. Dimitri stumbled out, coughing violently, skin blistered from heat. He collapsed at Kim's feet, broken and begging. Your operation is done, Kim said quietly, crouching beside him. Your dealers work for me now. Your territory is mine. Your men answer to me. You get to live because my daughter might ask about you someday, and I won't start our relationship by lying. But if I ever see you in New York again, if I ever hear you even thought about coming back, I'll finish what I started tonight. Understood? Dimitri nodded frantically, tears mixing with soot on his face. Good. Kim stood, gesturing to Vincent. Get him out of my sight. Put him on a plane to Moscow. Make sure he understands the consequences of returning. They left Dimitri alive but destroyed, stripped of power and reputation. By dawn, every Bratva operation in New York would know what happened to people who touched Kim Wong's family. By next week, Dimitri would be halfway to Russia, tail between his legs, lucky to be breathing. Kim emerged from the warehouse as sunrise painted the sky pink and gold. His team was already dispersing, bodies disposed of, evidence cleaned. No police would ask questions. No investigation would follow. In Kim's world, these things happened and then they didn't. Samantha stood beside the van, Rosalia asleep in her arms. She looked up as Kim approached, and her expression held questions she didn't voice. He was covered in blood. Some his from a graze across his ribs, mostly others. His hands shook slightly from adrenaline crash. But his daughter was safe. Is it over? Samantha asked. It's over. Kim reached out slowly, touching Rosalia's hair with gentle fingers. All of it. Dimitri's alive but broken. His operations dismantled. Gerald's being handled. No one will threaten her again. All of it? All of it. He met Samantha's eyes, letting her see the truth. I'm not a good man, Samantha. I'm not going to pretend tonight was anything but brutal. But I keep my promises. And I promise to get her back. Samantha shifted Rosalia's weight, freeing one arm to reach for Kim's hand. Thank you. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Acknowledgement, trust, the beginning of partnership. Kim squeezed her hand once, then let go. Let's go home, he said. The moment a father holds his daughter for the first time after saving her life, that's what this story's about. Like this video if you believe family is worth fighting for, no matter what it costs. The rescue is complete, but the emotional aftermath is just beginning. Keep watching to see how this family rebuilds after violence threatened to tear them apart. Gerald Cooper made it through TSA screening at JFK before Kim's men intercepted him. They didn't drag him away or cause a scene. Didn't draw attention from airport security or other travelers. Just flanked him politely, one on each side, and walked him to a private room airlines used for difficult passengers. Professional, efficient, terrifying in its calm. The duffel bag of cash sat heavy in Gerald's grip. He'd made it this far. Colombia was just a plane ride away. 11 hours and he'd be somewhere the Bratva couldn't find him, somewhere Kim Wong's reach didn't extend. A new life was waiting. All he had to do was board that flight. Mr. Cooper. The larger man, Korean, tattooed, built like violence was his first language, gestured to a chair. Sit. I'm going to miss my flight. You're going to miss a lot more if you don't sit down. Gerald sat, the duffel bag clutched in his lap like a shield. The door opened. Kim entered, still wearing clothes stained with what Gerald desperately hoped wasn't blood. His expression was blank, emotionless, somehow worse than anger would have been. You put my daughter in a cage with Russian mobsters, Kim said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of absolute judgment. For $200,000. I didn't know they'd... You knew exactly what they'd do, you just didn't care. Kim sat across from Gerald, elbows on his knees, close enough that Gerald could see the exhaustion and rage warring beneath his controlled exterior. They threatened her, made her cry, made her think she'd never see her mother again. 6 years old, Gerald. She's 6 fucking years old. I'm sorry, I didn't think... Sorry doesn't fix trauma. Sorry doesn't erase nightmares. Sorry doesn't give Rosalia back the sense of safety you stole when you sold her to gangsters. Kim leaned forward, and Gerald pressed back against his chair, animal instinct recognizing predator. Here's what's going to happen. You're getting on that flight to Colombia. You're going to disappear. You're never coming back to New York. Never contacting Samantha. Never trying to see Rosalia. If you do, if I even hear you thought about it, my people will find you. And when they do, I'll make Dimitri's end look merciful. Gerald's hands shook around the duffel bag straps. I just wanted to pay off my debts. Start over. I didn't mean for her to get hurt. You sold a child to pay gambling debts. Whatever your intentions, your actions speak louder. Kim stood, looking down at Gerald like he was something scraped off a shoe. My lawyers have already filed paperwork terminating your parental rights. Samantha signed this morning. You're legally dead to Rosalia now. Keep it that way. She'll ask about me, wonder where I went. And Samantha will tell her the truth, that you chose money over her safety. That you sold her to gangsters for profit. That you're not worth remembering. Kim moved to the door, then paused. You're alive because Rosalia might someday ask what happened to you. I won't start our relationship with lies. But if you make me regret this mercy, I'll correct my mistake personally. Understood? Gerald nodded, throat too tight for words. Kim left without another word. His men stayed long enough to ensure Gerald boarded the flight, then disappeared into the airport crowd like ghosts. By the time Gerald landed in Bogota 12 hours later, every trace of his existence in New York had been erased. Apartment emptied, lease terminated, employment records scrubbed from databases, bank accounts drained except for the $200,000 in cash he'd been paid. He'd wanted to disappear. Kim had just helped him do it permanently. Samantha sat on the brownstone's couch 3 days after the rescue, watching Rosalia sleep for what felt like the 100th time. She'd been doing this constantly, checking every few hours to confirm her daughter was still breathing, still safe, still whole. The nightmares had started the second night. Rosalia waking up screaming, convinced the bad men were coming back. Samantha would hold her, rock her, promise everything was okay now. But was it? Kim had been true to his word about distance. He checked in twice daily, morning text asking how Rosalia was doing, evening call to coordinate security and discuss therapy options. But he hadn't pushed for more, hadn't demanded time or access or gratitude. He'd simply been available, waiting for Samantha to decide what came next. Her phone buzzed. Kim, Rosalia still having nightmares? Samantha, every night. I made an appointment with a child therapist who specializes in trauma. Dr. Kirk. First session tomorrow. Kim. Good. I'll cover the cost. Whatever she needs, however long it takes. Samantha stared at the text, then typed, Do you want to see her? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally. Only if she wants to see me. Samantha. She asks about you. About her daddy who saved her. Kim. I'm not sure I deserve that title yet. Samantha. You rescued her from kidnappers, dismantled an entire gang operation to keep her safe. I think you've earned it. Kim, rescuing isn't the same as parenting. One's a single act of violence, the other's a lifetime commitment to showing up. Samantha, then come learn, come show up. We need to figure out how this works, how we do this together. The dots disappeared for a full minute. Then, when? Samantha, tomorrow, dinner. 6 p.m., I'll cook. We'll sit at a table like a family and figure out what that means. Kim, you don't have to. Samantha, I know, but I want to. We need to figure out how to be partners in this, how to raise her together despite everything that's happened. Kim, together. I like that word more than I probably should. Samantha smiled despite herself. See you tomorrow at 6. Kim arrived at 5:55 p.m. the next evening carrying grocery bags like an offering. Samantha opened the door to find him looking almost nervous, a startling expression on a man who'd dismantled a rival gang operation 3 days ago. I brought ingredients, he said. Wasn't sure what you were making. Figured I'd cover options. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to contribute, help, be useful in ways that don't involve violence. He stepped inside, glancing around like he'd never seen the apartment before. Where's Rosalia? Her room. She's been quiet today. Therapist says that's normal. Processing trauma sometimes looks like withdrawal. Kim set the bags on the kitchen counter and Samantha started unpacking. Expensive cuts of meat, organic vegetables, imported spices, ingredients that cost more than her weekly grocery budget used to be. You spent too much. Money's not an issue. It's never been an issue. He leaned against the counter, watching her with careful attention. How are you? Nobody's asked you that yet. Everyone's focused on Rosalia, which is right. But you went through trauma too. The question caught her off guard. I'm managing. Scared that it'll happen again. Angry that it happened at all. Grateful you kept your promise. She paused, meeting his eyes. Confused about what we are to each other now. What do you want us to be? I don't know yet. Co-parents at minimum. Maybe partners if we can figure out how to trust each other. Maybe... She trailed off, uncertain. Maybe family. Kim finished quietly. Maybe something that looks nothing like the picture-perfect version but works for us anyway. Before Samantha could respond, Rosalia's door opened. She stood in the hallway wearing pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Her eyes found Kim immediately. Hi, she said quietly, her voice small and uncertain. Hi. Kim crouched, bringing himself to her level. How are you feeling? Okay. She moved closer, each step careful. Are you really my daddy? Not just the man who saved me? I'm really your daddy. Biologically, genetically, permanently. He opened his arms. If you want me to be. Rosalia studied him for a long moment, processing. Then she crossed the distance and let him hold her. Not desperately like in the warehouse, but carefully. Like she was testing whether this safety was real or temporary. Mommy says you're very brave, she said against his shoulder. Your mom's braver than I'll ever be. She raised you alone for 6 years. That takes more courage than anything I've ever done. Do you have to leave again? Not if you don't want me to. I can stay for dinner. I can come back tomorrow. I can be here as much as you want me around. Rosalia pulled back, looking at him seriously. Every day? Every day, if that's what you need. She nodded, satisfied. Can I show you my drawings? I made new ones. Not about the bad men. About phoenixes and families and things that make me feel safe. Kim's expression softened in ways Samantha had never seen before. I'd love that more than anything. She took his hand, small fingers wrapping around his scarred knuckles, and led him to her room. Samantha watched them go, throat tight with emotions she couldn't name. This wasn't how she'd imagined her life. A crime boss sitting cross-legged on her daughter's floor, looking at crayon drawings like they were museum art. But maybe that was okay. Maybe family didn't have to look like magazine spreads and nuclear perfection. Maybe it just had to look like people trying their best with what they had. Dinner was surprisingly normal. Kim helped Samantha cook. Turned out he was competent with a knife, though the skill came from different training than culinary school. Rosalia set the table, chattering about her drawings and a story she'd made up about a phoenix who protected children from bad dreams. "Like your necklace," Kim said quietly, touching the pendant that Rosalia still wore despite everything. "Yeah, the phoenix keeps me safe, like you." She held up the necklace proudly. "It never left me, not even when I was scared." Kim's throat worked. He touched the necklace gently, the metalwork his mother had worn decades ago. "My mother gave me this when I was your age. She said phoenixes rise from ashes. They survive things that should destroy them. That makes them the strongest creatures in any story." "What happened to your mom?" "She died when I was 12. But she taught me how to be strong first. How to survive when everything seemed impossible." "I'm sorry she died." Rosalia's voice was solemn, wise beyond her years. "But I'm glad the necklace found me. It brought you back." Kim looked at Samantha over Rosalia's head. Something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Possibility. The beginning of something neither had planned, but both were willing to try. After dinner, Kim read Rosalia 2 chapters of her current book. When she fell asleep, he carried her to bed, tucked her in with the same careful attention Samantha had seen him use with weapons and strategy, precision applied to gentleness. They stood in the doorway watching her sleep. Kim's voice was barely a whisper. "Thank you." "For what?" "For letting me try. For not writing me off as just another criminal who'd hurt more than help." He turned to face her. "I know what I am, what I do. But with her, I want to be better. Being better is a choice you make every day, not a destination you reach. I'm not good at daily choices. I'm good at strategic planning and long-term goals." "Then plan to be the father she deserves. One day at a time, one choice at a time." Samantha moved closer. "I'm not asking you to be perfect, Kim. I'm asking you to be present, to choose her consistently even when it's hard. What if I fail? What if I'm not capable of being what she needs? Then you try again tomorrow. That's how parenting works. You show up, you do your best, you apologize when you mess up, and you try again." Kim was quiet for a long moment. "I can do that. Show up, try, be present." He pulled a small box from his pocket. "I had this made for her." Samantha opened it. Inside was a silver bracelet, delicate chain with a small phoenix charm. Rosalia's name engraved on the back. "For her," Kim explained, matching the necklace. "Thought she might want something new that's just from me. Not inherited or found or connected to trauma. Just a gift from her father." Samantha's eyes burned with tears she wouldn't shed. "She'll love it. And this." He pulled out a second box. Another bracelet, slightly different design, but same phoenix charm. "For you, if you want it. No pressure, just, I thought we're all connected now. All phoenixes rising from our respective ashes. Might as well have matching armor." Samantha took the bracelet, running her thumb over the metalwork. It was beautiful. Thoughtful. The most genuine gift anyone had given her in years. "This is perfect." "I'm not good with words. Figured jewelry was safer." She laughed, the sound surprising both of them. "You're doing better than you think." They stood in Rosalia's doorway until she stirred, murmuring in her sleep. Kim stepped back, giving her space. "I should go. Let you both rest." "Kim?" Samantha caught his arm. "Tomorrow. Same time?" He smiled, genuine, unguarded, almost hopeful. "I'll be here." And he was. The next day and the day after that. Slowly, carefully, Kim Wong learned how to be a father through showing up. Through bedtime stories and dinner conversations and sitting quietly while Rosalia processed trauma in therapy. Gerald was gone. Dimitri was broken. The threats had been neutralized. And in a brownstone in Park Slope, 3 people who shouldn't have become a family somehow made it work anyway. 1 month after the rescue, Rosalia started calling Kim Appa without hesitation. The Korean word for father came more naturally to her than daddy ever had, rolling off her tongue like she'd been born knowing it. The transition happened gradually, first during moments of safety, then expanding until it became as natural as breathing. Kim never corrected her, never questioned whether he'd earned the title. He just accepted it and tried every day to become someone worthy of it. The nightmares had decreased to 2 or 3 times a week. Dr. Kirk said that was excellent progress for a child who'd experienced kidnapping. She recommended family sessions, all 3 of them together, learning to communicate and process collectively. Kim attended every appointment without complaint, sitting on the too small couch in Dr. Kirk's office, answering questions about his childhood and mother and the violence he'd normalized. Rosalia's concept of safety is still fragile, Dr. Kirk explained during a parent-only session while Rosalia played in the waiting room. She needs consistent routine and honest communication. Children who've experienced kidnapping often develop hypervigilance and abandonment anxiety. The best remedy is predictable presence from trusted adults. "What can I do?" Kim asked, leaning forward like this was the most important briefing he'd ever attended. "Exactly what you've been doing. Show up. Be consistent. Let her see that you're reliable even when things are difficult." Dr. Kirk looked between Kim and Samantha. "You're both doing remarkably well given the circumstances. Most co-parents with your unique situation struggle far more with coordination and trust." Samantha reached for Kim's hand without thinking. He took it, fingers interlacing naturally. "We're figuring it out as we go." That's all anyone can do. Parenting doesn't come with manuals, especially for families formed under traumatic circumstances. Dr. Kirk closed her notebook. "Keep doing what you're doing. Rosalia's healing. She feels safe with both of you. That's the most important thing." They fell into routines without discussing them, the kind of patterns that emerged from necessity and proximity. Kim came for dinner 4 nights a week, always bringing ingredients he'd picked up from the Korean market in Flushing. He handled morning school drop-off on Tuesdays and Thursdays, arriving at the brownstone at 7:30 sharp with coffee for Samantha and encouraging words for Rosalia. He taught her Korean words and phrases, simple ones first like hello and thank you, then building to full sentences about family and love and safety. She called him Appa, and it never stopped making his chest tight. Samantha watched their relationship develop with something that felt like gratitude, mixed with wonder. Kim wasn't the stranger from the hotel anymore. He was the man who read bedtime stories in 3 different character voices, who helped with kindergarten homework despite having dropped out at 14, who sat through every parent-teacher conference like national security depended on her grades and social development. 6 weeks after the rescue, Kim showed up for dinner looking nervous in ways she'd never seen before. He'd cooked this time, Korean food his mother had taught him before she died. The kitchen smelled like garlic and sesame and something Samantha couldn't identify, but wanted to bottle and keep forever. "Bulgogi," Kim explained, plating the marinated beef with careful precision, and japchae, and kimchi fried rice. Wasn't sure what Rosalia would eat, so I made options. Rosalia loved all of it. She ate with enthusiasm typically reserved for chicken nuggets and mac and cheese, asking Kim questions about each dish in a mixture of English and broken Korean. He answered patiently, teaching her the names of ingredients and cooking techniques his mother had passed down. After dinner, after Rosalia was asleep, Kim stayed. He helped Samantha clean up, moving around her kitchen with increasing familiarity. They'd developed a rhythm. She washed. He dried. They talked about nothing and everything. When the dishes were done, they sat on the couch with tea, a routine that had emerged without conscious decision. "I need to ask you something," Kim said finally, setting down his cup. Samantha's heart rate picked up. Okay. Marry me. She blinked. What? Marry me. Legally. So Rosalia has protection if something happens to me. So you have access to my accounts and properties. So there's legal documentation that you're both mine to protect. He rushed through the words like reciting a business proposal. I'll set up everything properly. Trust funds, medical directives, succession planning. Kim. She stopped him. Are you proposing because you want to, or because it's strategically practical? He was quiet, considering. Both? I want Rosalia protected. I want you protected. But I also... He stopped, jaw working. I want to be your family. Not just her father. Not just the man you co-parent with. I want to be yours. Completely. Permanently. Samantha's heart hammered. That's not a marriage proposal. That's a property rights agreement with feelings attached. I've never done this before. I don't know the right words. Kim moved closer, and she could see vulnerability in his eyes that he rarely showed. I know I'm not a good man. I know my world is dangerous and my past is violent and I'll probably fuck this up 100 different ways. But I'm trying. I'm choosing you both every single day. And I'd like to keep doing that, with paperwork that makes it official and vows that make it real. That's slightly more romantic, but still mostly practical. I can try again. With flowers and a ring and some grand gesture. No. She took his hand, feeling the calluses from years of violence, the warmth that contradicted his cold reputation. Ask me again when you mean it because you want to build a life together, not because you're protecting assets. Kim met her eyes. I choose you. Both of you. Not because it's practical or strategic or good risk management, because I can't imagine my life without you in it now. Because when I think about my future, you're both there. Always. Then ask me that way. He slid off the couch, kneeling on one knee beside the coffee table. Samantha Dudley. You're stronger than anyone I've ever met. Braver than any soldier in my organization. Smarter than my strategists. Better than I deserve in every possible way. Will you marry me? Not for protection or strategy or legal documentation, but because I want to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. Tears blurred Samantha's vision. That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. Is that a no? That's a yes, you idiot. Because somehow, despite everything, you've become someone I can't imagine my life without either. She pulled him up, kissing him before she could second-guess the decision. He tasted like tea and uncertainty, kissing her back with careful intensity that suggested he'd been wanting this, but afraid to ask. They broke apart, foreheads touching. Kim's hands shook slightly where they held her waist. I don't know how to be a husband, he admitted. Good thing I don't know how to be a crime boss's wife. We'll figure it out together like everything else. Together. He smiled, genuine and unguarded. I really like that word. They married 3 months later in a small ceremony at City Hall. Rosalia was flower girl, wearing a dress Kim had custom made with phoenix embroidery along the hem. Vincent stood as best man, looking uncomfortable in a suit but genuinely happy for his friend. David was there with his family. Junho brought flowers that looked suspiciously expensive and possibly stolen. The ceremony was short. 5 minutes of legal formalities that made Samantha a Wong and gave Rosalia 2 legal parents with all the protections that entailed. Afterward, they went to a Korean restaurant Kim's mother had loved, the one she'd taken him to for birthdays when money was tight. He'd bought out the entire establishment for the afternoon, filling it with the strange hybrid family they'd created. Criminals and civilians. Koreans and Americans. People who shouldn't have fit together but somehow did. To family, Vincent toasted, raising his glass of soju, however we find it. To phoenixes, Kim added, looking at Rosalia, who rise from ashes and survive impossible things. To second chances, Samantha finished, and people brave enough to change. They moved into the brownstone properly after the wedding. Kim transferred the deed to Samantha's name, for protection, he claimed, though she suspected it was more about trust and commitment. They converted the second bedroom into his office, establishing clear boundaries between his criminal operations and their home life. "Business stays in the office," Kim explained, closing the door firmly. "Family happens everywhere else. That's the rule. Non-negotiable." "Can you actually compartmentalize like that?" "I have to. For her." He glanced at Rosalia's closed bedroom door. "I won't bring violence into our home. Whatever happens out there stays out there. She gets the best version of me, not the worst." He mostly succeeded. There were late-night phone calls he took in the office with the door closed. Days when Vincent summoned him for emergencies that couldn't wait. Nights when he came home tense, hands shaking with adrenaline, jaw tight with stress he wouldn't discuss. But he never brought the details home. Never let Rosalia see the monster her father became when protecting their territory and operations. Dr. Kirk said the compartmentalization was healthy. Children need to see their parents as whole people, but they don't need every detail. Kim showing Rosalia the father he wants to be while keeping the violence separate. That's growth. That's conscious choice. Samantha wasn't sure it was sustainable long-term. Violence had a way of bleeding into everything eventually, no matter how carefully you tried to contain it. But for now, it worked. Kim picked Rosalia up from school. He taught her Korean language and culture. He attended her performances at the cultural arts program where Samantha worked. He was present in every way that mattered. The nightmares had mostly stopped by their 6-month anniversary. Rosalia still woke up occasionally, confused and scared, but she called for Appa now instead of screaming wordlessly. And Kim would come, sitting beside her bed until she fell back asleep, sometimes dozing in the chair when the night was particularly difficult. "Am I a good daughter?" she asked one night, half asleep and vulnerable. "The best," Kim answered without hesitation. "Why do you ask?" "Because I was scared you'd leave, like Gerald did. Like people always do." Gerald. She didn't say his name often, but when she did, it carried weight. Kim took her hand carefully. "I'm not leaving. Not ever. You're stuck with me whether you want to be or not. I want to be stuck with you." "Good. Because I'm not very good at letting go of things I love." She smiled, eyes already closing. "I love you too, Appa." Kim sat there long after she fell asleep, watching his daughter breathe, marveling at the impossibility of it all. 6 months ago, he'd been alone. Now he had a wife, a daughter, a family. Now he had something worth protecting beyond territory and power and money. Now he had everything. Comment if this story is hitting you in the feels. Drop a heart below if you believe people can change when they choose to. This family is being built one day at a time, and what comes next will show you what happens when imperfect people commit to doing better. One more chapter left. Don't miss how this story ends. 2 years passed like seasons. Slow at first, each day measured by therapy appointments and school pickups, and learning to be a family. Then suddenly blooming into something beautiful and permanent. Rosalia turned 8. Confident and bilingual, switching between English and Korean with the ease that made Kim's chest tight with pride. She'd taken to wearing both the original Phoenix necklace and the matching bracelet Kim had given her, layering them like armor against a world that had once hurt her. Samantha had expanded the cultural arts program into a community hub for immigrant families, after-school programs, language classes, citizenship prep. She worked full-time now, her degree from years ago finally put to use doing work that mattered. Kim had offered to fund the entire operation outright, but she'd refused his money beyond what the organization could legitimately obtain through grants and donations. Integrity mattered to her. Kim respected that, even when he thought her principles were impractical. Their life had settled into something resembling normal, If normal could include a father who still ran criminal operations and a mother who'd learned not to ask too many questions about late-night phone calls. Kim was phasing out of direct involvement. Cleaner operations now, less violence. More legitimate businesses supplementing the illegal ones, building an exit strategy for Rosalia, for Samantha. For the future he wanted them to have. The pregnancy was unplanned but not unwelcome. Samantha announced it over dinner on a random Tuesday, watching Kim's face cycle through surprise, fear, and finally joy that made him look younger than she'd ever seen him. "A son?" he asked after the 20-week ultrasound, his hand resting on her growing belly with reverent care. "A son," Samantha confirmed. "We need to pick a name." "Phoenix," Kim said immediately, like he'd been carrying the name for months. "You want to name our son after a mythical bird?" "I want to name him after the thing that saved us, after the necklace that brought us together, after the symbol of survival and second chances and rising from ashes." Kim's hand moved gently over her stomach. "Phoenix Wong, if you agree." She did, because the name carried weight and meaning, because it honored the journey that had brought them here, because it felt right in ways she couldn't fully articulate. Phoenix Wong was born on a cold November afternoon, screaming his way into the world with the same determination his father showed in everything. Kim held his son with the same careful intensity he'd shown Rosalia 8 years ago, marveling at the tiny human who shared his genetics but not his damage or history. "He's perfect," Kim whispered, voice rough with emotion. "He's wrinkly and loud," Samantha corrected, but her smile was radiant, exhausted, and happy. Rosalia held her baby brother 2 hours after his birth, sitting in the hospital bed beside Samantha with careful precision. The Phoenix necklace caught the light as she leaned down to touch Phoenix's tiny hand. "Will you give him the necklace?" Rosalia asked, looking at Kim. "Like your mom gave you?" Kim had thought about this extensively. He pulled out a small box he'd been carrying for months, new jewelry, commissioned when they'd first learned about the pregnancy. A phoenix pendant, smaller than Rosalia's, but identical in design. "This one's his," Kim explained, opening the box. "But yours stays yours. You're the one who brought us all together. You wear it to remind yourself how strong you are, how you survived impossible things." Rosalia beamed with pride. "Can I help put it on him when he's bigger? When he's older?" "For now. We keep it safe until he's ready." Kim closed the box carefully. "But you'll always be the first Phoenix, the one who changed everything." They brought Phoenix home 3 days later, the brownstone filled with baby sounds. Crying, cooing, the white noise machine Dr. Kirk recommended for infant sleep. Kim discovered he was surprisingly competent with diaper changes and bottle feeding, his criminal precision transferring well to parenting logistics. "I've dismantled rival gangs with less efficiency than you run this nursery," Samantha joked, watching him swaddle Phoenix with military precision. "Everything's about preparation and execution. Babies are just messier hostage negotiations." "Did you just compare our son to a hostage situation?" "I compared the logistics. There's a difference." She laughed, the sound warming him from the inside out. He'd never imagined laughing in his own home, never thought he'd have mornings where his biggest concern was whether they had enough formula instead of whether someone was planning to kill him. Never dreamed he'd be the kind of man who read bedtime stories in funny voices and coached his daughter through Korean language homework. But here he was. Reformed criminal, husband, father of 2. Still dangerous when necessary, but mostly just present and trying his best. Rosalia's 8th birthday fell on a Saturday. They threw a party at the brownstone, 15 kids from school, parents hovering awkwardly, trying not to stare at Kim's visible tattoos or Vincent's obvious bodyguard stance near the snack table. Samantha had insisted on normalcy. Kim had insisted on security. They compromised. Discreet protection, obvious celebration. "This is weird," Junho muttered, standing near the punch bowl, bodyguarding a children's birthday party. "Get used to it," Kim said, bouncing Phoenix in his arms while watching Rosalia laugh with her friends. This is our life now. You're getting soft, Hyung. I'm getting smart. There's a difference. Kim watched Rosalia open presents, her face lighting up with each gift. Soft would be forgetting what I am. Smart is choosing what matters most. Vincent approached, carrying a beer someone's parent had brought. The Delancey situation's escalating. They want a meeting. Tomorrow. They want tonight. Tomorrow. Kim repeated firmly. Tonight's my daughter's birthday. Tomorrow, I'm a businessman who handles problems. Today, I'm a father who celebrates his child. Vincent nodded, understanding. This was the new rule. Family came first. Business could wait. Usually, unless violence threatened, in which case Kim would handle it with the same ruthless efficiency he always had. But birthday parties were sacred. School performances were sacred. Family dinners were sacred. Everything else could burn. The party wound down around 8. Parents collected their children, thanking Samantha for hosting. Kim shook hands, played the role of respectable father, breathed easier when the last guest left. Did I do good, Appa? Rosalia asked, her face smeared with cake frosting. You were perfect, Kim confirmed. He crouched beside her. You know what today is besides your birthday? What? The anniversary of when I found you. When I saw the necklace and my whole world changed. He touched the phoenix pendant at her throat gently. Before you, I thought I was going to die alone. Probably violently. Definitely unmourned. But then there you were, wearing my mother's necklace. And suddenly I had a reason to live differently. To be different. I'm glad you found me, Appa. Me too, baby. Me too. Later, after Rosalia was asleep and Phoenix was fed and changed, Kim sat on the couch with Samantha. They'd fallen into this routine, late-night quiet moments where they processed the day and connected without words. Do you miss it? Samantha asked softly. Your old life. Before us. Kim considered carefully. Sometimes I miss the simplicity. Everything was clear. Enemies died. Allies got rich. Decisions were strategic instead of emotional. He paused, looking at her. But I don't miss the loneliness. Don't miss wondering if I'd die before I mattered to anyone. Don't miss feeling like I was just surviving instead of living. You're living now. I'm living now, he agreed. Because you took a chance on a dangerous man who showed up asking uncomfortable questions about a necklace. Because you chose to trust me with your daughter despite every reason not to. Because you saw something in me worth salvaging. I didn't salvage you. You did that yourself. I just gave you a reason to try. Kim pulled her closer and she leaned into him naturally. Phoenix stirred in his crib but settled. Rosalia's gentle snoring drifted from her bedroom. The brownstone felt full in ways that had nothing to do with furniture or square footage. I'm retiring, Kim said suddenly. Samantha sat up. What? From active operations. Gradually, over the next 2 years. Vincent's taking over day-to-day management. I'll keep financial stake but remove myself from direct involvement. He met her eyes. I want to watch our kids grow up. Want to be present for school plays and soccer games and teenage drama. Can't do that if I'm constantly managing criminal enterprises or dodging federal investigations. Can you actually walk away? I've been building the exit for 18 months, legitimizing businesses, transitioning power, creating structures that don't require my direct involvement. He paused. I'll never be completely clean. Too much blood in my past, too many bodies buried. But I can be clean enough that our kids don't pay for my choices. What will you do? If not this? I have no idea. Kim smiled. Terrifying, isn't it? 44 years old, finally figuring out how to be human instead of just surviving. Better late than never. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights through the window. Somewhere in New York, Kim's organization still operated. Deals were made, Money changed hands. Violence occasionally erupted when negotiations failed. But up here, in this brownstone in Park Slope, there was just family. Rosalia's school had a family heritage presentation when she turned 8. Students showed their families around classrooms, explaining projects about their cultural backgrounds. Kim attended with Samantha and infant Phoenix, feeling distinctly out of place among the other parents in their business casual and cheerful smiles. "That's my dad," Rosalia announced proudly to her friends, pointing at Kim. "He's from Korea. He teaches me Korean words and makes the best bulgogi." "What's dad in Korean?" one kid asked. "Appa." Rosalia looked at Kim expectantly. "Say something in Korean, Appa." Kim crouched, speaking in his native language, a blessing his mother had taught him about children being the light that pushes away darkness. Rosalia understood maybe half, but she beamed anyway. "What did he say?" her friend asked. "He said I'm strong like a phoenix, that I make our family better." Rosalia hugged Kim's neck. "Right, Appa?" "Right," he confirmed, switching back to English. The teacher approached, Ms. Robertson, enthusiastic and genuinely interested in her students. "Rosalia's one of our best students. She's thriving in the dual language program." "Her mother deserves the credit," Kim said automatically. "She's been teaching Rosalia to value education since birth. And you've been reinforcing it. The consistency shows." Ms. Robertson paused. "She talks about you often, about how you teach her brave things." "Brave things." Her words. "She says you teach her that being scared is okay as long as you don't let fear control you. That surviving hard things makes you stronger. That's pretty advanced thinking for 8. Kim thought about the warehouse, the kidnapping, the terror Rosalia must have felt. She's been through more than most kids, had to learn those lessons earlier than she should have. Well, she's resilient. Credit to both of you for helping her process and grow stronger. After the presentation, they got ice cream, family tradition for special occasions. Rosalia got chocolate with sprinkles. Phoenix slept in his carrier. Samantha and Kim shared a sundae, their hands brushing as they reached for the spoon. "I like this," Rosalia said suddenly. "Ice cream?" Samantha asked. "No. All of us together. Being a family." She looked at Kim seriously. "You're not going away, right? You're staying forever?" "I'm staying forever," Kim promised, "whether you want me to or not." "Good." Rosalia went back to her ice cream satisfied. The Phoenix necklace, Kim's mother's necklace, sat in a glass case in the Brownstones' living room now. Below it, a plaque. For Caroline Wong, who gave her son a future. For Rosalia, who gave him a reason. For Phoenix, who gave him hope. 4 pendants total. Kim's original, Rosalia's replica, Phoenix's waiting for him to grow, and Samantha's completing the set. All of them Phoenixes, all of them survivors. All of them proof that rising from ashes wasn't just mythology, it was choice, daily and deliberate. "Tell me about your mom," Rosalia asked one evening, curled against Kim on the couch while Phoenix dozed against Samantha. "She was small, but fierce," Kim said, the memories easier to access now. "Came to America with nothing but determination and this necklace. Worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. Taught me that survival wasn't just about staying alive. It was about staying human despite everything trying to make you into something else. Would she like me? She would love you. Would be so proud of how strong you are, how you survived impossible things and came out braver instead of broken. And Phoenix? She'd spoil him rotten. Korean grandmothers don't know how to do anything halfway." Rosalia smiled, processing. "I wish I could have met her." "Me too, baby. But she's here anyway, in the necklace and the language and the food I cook, in the lessons she taught me that I'm teaching you." Kim kissed her forehead. "Phoenixes don't really die. They just change forms and rise again." That night, after the kids were asleep, Kim stood in the living room looking at the 4 pendants. 4 chances at redemption. 4 reasons to keep choosing better instead of easier. Samantha joined him, slipping her hand into his. What are you thinking? That I'm the luckiest man alive, that I don't deserve this family, that I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to earn them anyway. You don't have to earn us. We're already yours. Then I'll spend the rest of my life being worthy of that gift. He pulled her close, watching the phoenix pendants catch the light. Outside, New York hummed with millions of intersecting stories. Inside this brownstone, 4 phoenixes had found each other. 4 people who'd risen from their respective ashes to build something better. The necklace that had once represented loss now represented everything. Family, legacy, the unexpected ways love could crack open even the hardest hearts. Kim Wong, who'd spent 42 years believing attachment was death, finally understood what his mother had tried to teach him. Some things were worth the risk. Some people were worth becoming someone different. And family, messy, complicated, imperfect family, was worth everything. This story started with a necklace and ended with a family nobody expected. If you believe people can change, that second chances matter. Drop a comment telling us what you thought of Kim and Samantha's journey. Subscribe for more stories that prove love can break through even the hardest walls. Your story might be next. Because sometimes, the most unlikely beginnings lead to the most beautiful endings. Sometimes, phoenixes rise, and sometimes, they bring their whole family with them.